Hello everyone and welcome to the Gamestars League Season 1. I am Lethal back again with my main man Teddy. Teddy, how you getting on, mate?
I'm doing great, thank you very much, Lethal. We have some exciting matches today, maybe not a group of death like we had yesterday, maybe a bit more of a group of underdogs, which does mean that they will have to grind their way up to the international finals.
Yeah, a few of these teams aren't well known, but like you said before, they could be underrated, underestimated in some way. So, looking at Group G to see exactly what is going to happen, it's going to be an interesting one to say the least. We've got a mixture of, could say, a variety of different regions here and there in terms of the countries. It's going to be more of an Eastern Europe affair between these teams, and it'd be interesting to see how well they can actually do going forward in this group.
Yeah, I think it's going to get more and more challenging for them, but it also means that they should be around a similar level, so still some pretty heated matches ahead of us.
Yeah, can't wait. It's going to be an absolute slobber knocker, hopefully. We know yesterday, teased us with what could come for the international finals, but, we're still looking a bit too far ahead. But with the popular heroes, as you can see, the only difference we may have noticed is the win rates has changed slightly compared to yesterday, but it seems like Barney's back in the top 4 compared to, I can't remember who was fourth previously.
Poco,
I think from the top of my head. Yes, that was it. It was Poco. It was Barney most of the time. Poco slipped in before, but Barney slipped back in probably after yesterday's results.
Yeah, well, Poco was banned in a couple of matches yesterday. I believe 2 out of the 3, which obviously does mean that some other brawlers like Barty could slip their way in there. Obviously, Poco usually does well with tanks, which are a nice counter to Barty, so him being out of the picture in a couple of matches will be influencing whether we see some Barley action or not. We have our overview of the groups. Blood Diamond, Mood Gaming, SK, Zero Zone Spain, AC Milan Clash, and XO Free Agents are all going to the international playoffs already. The number 2 and 3 teams in each group will still be battling it out on Friday to see which team in each group is going to be joining the others for the international playoffs.
That is absolutely right, Tenny. As you just mentioned, every first place team will qualify, which means they can put their feet up, relax, chill for a bit. If there's any other tournaments they're competing in, they can continue on and put their prime focus on that until the international finals here comes through. And even then, though, I'm sure they'll be watching this back just to make sure there's nothing, because what you got to understand is for the second and third place teams, not only are they going to be completing their decider matches, it's just more VOD reviews for the top teams to try and study in order to understand what they could be up to. But, that's the group results currently, but we are going to be looking at Group G today to see exactly what we're going to be looking at so far. So we've got the opener match from 3T Gaming from Turkey versus Platoon, and we've got Max 2 versus eSprit. We'll have to see what they can come up and see if they give us a damn good showing. But there we go. 3T Gaming will be starting off against Platoon, and then Max 2 will be playing against eSprit straight afterwards.
Yeah, teams that we don't know too well. They have yet to really make any big international appearances, but the international group stage is there to do just that for them. So maybe a bit of a chance for them to get on the spot, get under the spotlight, and maybe show us what they are built off. Obviously, when you are in one of those lesser teams, a bit less known teams, you want to introduce yourself in an exploding way. This is going to be a video profile to show this off.
Мой никнейм в игре Steady, меня зовут Стас, капитан нашей команды игрок Zetix, его зовут Вадим, он тоже из Беларуси, а третий игрок у нас Максим с ником Сарделька, он из России, точно не знаю какой город. Так, в Brawl Stars мой любимый бравлер это Карл, любимый персонаж Zetix это Мистер Пи, а у Сардельки я не знаю, честно, какой любимый персонаж. Да, для нашей команды это первый турнир, в котором мы себя показываем. Возможно, будем играть еще турниры, смотря как сложится сейчас, но вообще, да, планируем. Считаем, что с группой нам повезло, немного, потому что слишком сильных соперников мы там не видим. но некоторые команды мы даже не знаем, так что не знаем, что от них ожидать, но группа вполне симпатична. Ну, наша цель на данный момент это пройти в топ-16 лучших команд, вот выйти в международный финал, а дальше уже будем смотреть. Ну, там есть прям очень сильные команды, титаны, которые на чемпионатах мира играют. Ну, вот это самые сильные соперники. Если сетка таких соперников не будет давать, и мы не будем ошибаться, то, я думаю, мы можем нормально так пройти. Ну, на самом деле, вот лично каждому оппоненту мы не готовимся. Ну, в основном это просто какой-то выбор персонажей на определенную карту, и ну, сильные команды уже знают, какой пул персонажей есть на ту или иную карту, и вот так вот. Но лично к каждому оппоненту мы не готовимся. Желаю успехов нашей команде. Думаю, что мы сможем, если будем стараться дойти далеко в турнире, успехов нам. Ну, ждем от всех поддержки в нашу сторону. Мы пытаемся показать себя с лучшей стороны. Держите за нас кулачки, мы сможем, я думаю.
And there we have it, nice little interview there. And it's so again, it's going to be very difficult to try and understand exactly what to go off here. You know, we know that 3T Gaming are like, you know, the #1 team in Turkey who managed to qualify for that quite comfortably. A couple of wildcard teams and the #3 team from Kazakhstan. So it's very hard to try and, you know, predict what could be the outcome for these teams. I'm hoping like something, you know, one of these teams will come out the woodwork and completely surprise us. You know, it's been very, very rare and very odd occasion, but it can happen. But, you know, we have to see in terms of their experience on how they actually go through each game mode. For example, like, you know, the comps they select and, you know, their knowledge on the game overall. But we'll have a look at the bans anyway to see what we're going to start off with. And, you know, not really too much of a surprise there. So it seems like, you know, quite standard bans depending on what modes they prefer, or depending on how much trouble they actually have.
Yeah, I think Gene is going to be a bit more interesting. Obviously, Bell is kind of the go-to ban for most teams at the moment, especially for a single ban, you know, format. Gene, on the other hand, I feel like it's a fairly interesting one, actually, because you don't really see him banned that often. If you look at the Brawl Stars Championship, for example, you barely see him ever banned, and you have 2 bans per team. So here, having a bit less bans to work with and still going for the Gene is definitely interesting. We'll have to see how that comes down in play. Field goal, dry season, deep dinner, and bot drop, as well as parallel plays, actually are going to be our maps here for this first matchup. I mean, I can see how Gene could have been quite impactful. I still feel like leaving Stu, Barley, and Max in the mix, for example, rather than Gene is a bit questionable on my end, but maybe they have some strategies prepared for us. I'm excited to see.
Yeah, you know, you literally took the words right out of my mouth. Literally, those first 2 brawlers you suggested to actually be banned, like the Barley or the Stew, you know, they're the quite standard bans you would normally see. But the Bell is pretty standard as well. So it's not like, for example, like sometimes they won't ban a brawler just because of the fact that they know that it's one of the top tier brawlers, or it's a brawler which is used quite often. Maybe it's just one they're just all, you know, used to like not actually being able to have trouble with quite a lot of the time. Like they'd rather personally ban that brawler because they've had problems with themselves, not just because it's a top tier brawler in any way. But you're right, though, field goal, dry season, deep diner, bot drop, parallel plays, quite an even stack in terms of like what the maps and modes will be appearing here. But you know, I do feel like in a lot of these matches, especially these first 2 series, it's going to be a clear indicator on what we can expect. It's very difficult to say exactly what we can predict in terms of, you know, scoreline and some of these sets and what can happen and why, because we're kind of in purgatory at the moment in terms of what we can assume could happen here. But I think normally the first, or by the time it's the second set, we can maybe get a flavour, a clear understanding on what these teams will be up against.
Yeah, for a lot of these teams, it is their first steps in the spotlight. I think that nerves are something to take into account as well, and just overall stress management. Because, you know, when you're used to playing in very small events and, you know, very low impact events as well, with a lot less on the line, you get a bit more confident. But I think for a lot of those teams here, it is their biggest event yet. Coming back to that Gene pick, Gene ban rather, I think that Gene would be kind of either a very map-specific ban, which is probably the answer here, because if you look at those teams, they're probably around tier 2, tier 3 in Europe, probably more around tier 3 at the moment, which also means that there are a lot of teams over there. They know each other less well, as if you look at tier 1, there's only maybe like 10 teams around that space, so they scrim each other all the time. They know each other super well, so they can go for those very specific targeted bans, saying like, okay, this dude, we know he's so good on the Gene, we can ban him. Here it's probably less likely, because there are going to be hundreds and thousands even like teams around their scrimming network, so it's a bit tougher to go for those specific bans, as there is also less footage of them playing in other events, so you can do a bit less research as well. So yeah, I'm gonna assume it is very map specific, which works out. We saw the maps just earlier. I think on like 4 of the maps, Gene is a decent pick, if not a good pick. I do think it's still going to be interesting to see if there are some other brawlers that could get countered by Gene. Gene is a bit of an odd one that could counter pretty much anything, because if you get a pull at the right time, it's always going to be very impactful and very hurtful towards your opponents. But on the other hand, he doesn't like directly counter many brawlers either.
Yeah, we're not going to see that Max Sandy and Gene combo, that's for sure. But the only problem is, you are right though, for a lot of these players, most of these players, maybe even all of them, we're not really too sure. But for most of them, in terms of experience, yeah, this could be their first event. Sadly, yeah, we know it's online, it's not offline, but still, it's experience nonetheless. Everyone remembers their first event. It can be nerve-wracking, it's very, very difficult, and also the pressure is on top of that, knowing that you're representing your country from the nationals, now trying to get into the international finals. So it is very, very difficult to kind of try and comprehend. So, it could be a little bit of choking, could fall with their trousers down. We know there's quite a lot of situations that can happen. We will blatantly notice it, maybe just due to the fact that a missed shot, missed prediction, coordination will be way off, one per player may be over aggressive. There's so many different situations and scenarios which could occur, and we will notice them straight away. But obviously I'm not going to call them out for it, because like I said, it's a lack of experience. But even for this event, just as a whole, for some of these guys, it's vital experience. It's very, very, very rare. I don't think I've actually heard of anyone, maybe the odd couple people, where they've actually won their first event. Especially, maybe years ago that could happen, but in this day and age, going into the future like of esports, it's a very, very rare occurrence. The percentage is super low, but we'll find out as we are going to set one, game number 1, to find out exactly what these.
We have a Gene pick onto Steady.
Oh.
Yup, that's why they're not moving. That's already game 1 going to 3T, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to make that assumption. I'm not really too sure what happened here. Like, some of them I felt like AFK trying to find out what's going to happen, but then again, at the same time, they're not sure if they should just play it out or should just quit. I'm not really too sure, but it seems a little bit weird. But Platoon is just going to continue on anyway. But I feel like they're just trying to end the game quickly because of the fact that they may need to reset, which is understandable. Could be wrong, but this is just double checking.
Yeah, definitely an interesting way to kick things off. I mean, picking banned brawlers happens, especially, if you're looking at a best of 5 and you're in like the 3rd or 4th set and you don't really remember necessarily exactly who was banned, or if you have double bans, there could be like 4 bans as well. Here, I don't know. I feel like into game 1, you just banned your brawlers. You should still be able to remember what you banned like a minute ago. But nevertheless, and yeah, it's a way to start, I guess. It's a way to start. I will check with production as well if that does mean indeed that it's a free win.
Yeah, no, that's understandable, because I think it's not just the fact that they only forget the bans. It's also a possibility. It's just a fact of habit where they've got a plan, they've got a comp they're going to go in with. In their mindset, they're still going with that comp, not really thinking about the ban. So it's probably a bit of both. It can be a natural habit. It's a very common occurrence. It's completely understandable. I was a little bit worried. I thought there was a disconnect or AFK, but then I realised that they've obviously just going to end the game as soon as possible and then try and rectify it afterwards. It was very early on in the game. It was straight away. It wasn't like it was halfway through the game. Normally, if it's within 30 seconds or within a certain timer, they will just restart it anyway. And it was possibly restarting the timer. But I'm hoping for their sake that it's, you know, they won't just go straight to game 2, you know, from set 1. It'll be a bit of a shame to, you know, lose your first game straight away in the first series, and that happens. That's not really the kind of stuff you want. But like I said, it's just experience, isn't it? At the end of the day, you know, it's just a force of habit. You go straight into ladder or scrims, and you've got your comp in your mind, and you just, you know, don't really think about the bans too much.
Yeah, traditionally in Brawl Stars, when you pick a banned brawler, you give that game to your opponents. That's kind of like the tradition. Yeah, often it's also in the rules that's how it is, but that's kind of what usually happens. Not entirely sure here with Gamestars, because it's the first time it happens, and with 1 ban per team, it's pretty rare that it happens as well, to be honest, especially this early on in a match. So we'll find out soon enough what that entitles regarding the scores. But yeah, I mean, you know, if you looked at the game, it was Platoon that won it, but obviously they were the ones picking the banned brawlers, so I can guarantee that they will not be the ones up by 1 game. I'm guessing it's a restart then? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I think it's a restart, possibly due to the fact that they didn't actually play the match on as though as a standard game. Like, it's like I said, sometimes, you know, if it's within the timer, that's fine. But of course, yeah, from what you've just said in the competitive scene, but normally if you picked a banned brawler, that's it. But I suppose, you know, there's different rule sets, you know, in every
for
event,
sure,
depending on the circumstances.
I mean,
but
the tough
it's understandable.
The tough thing is that it does reveal the comps of your opponents as well. So sure, you're like, you know what I mean? So it can be a bit more tedious than it looks, because sure, you know, it doesn't change anything in the scores, but it does mean that they can gain some insights regarding what their opponents planned on playing and adapt accordingly. Obviously, you know, Treaty, they're aware of that, so they will also adapt if they feel like it was a bit of a risky comp they went for. They're not going to be like, you know, repeating the same exact thing. But yeah, we'll find out soon enough. Sorry for the delay, guys. I'm guessing they are figuring out what happens regarding that first game. But yeah, an interesting way to kick things off. I think it just shows that maybe lack of experience from the players, because usually, I mean, you're either very distracted if you pick your banned brawler or your opponent's banned brawler, or you're really nervous, and then, you know what I mean, you're focusing on so many different things that the simplest things sometimes just get out of your grasp.
Yeah, how dare they? I could have got a coffee whilst I was waiting for that. Typical, isn't it? You know, get a bit of caffeine in me. But, you know, yeah, it's one of those things. It's a simple mistake, you know. It's not the first time I've seen it happen. Definitely won't be the last, I'm telling you that right now. And yeah, like you said, we are just waiting for confirmation. But, you know, it won't be too long. We know it's a little bit delayed here. Apologies for everyone who's tuned in, and we're just waiting for the first series to get underway. It was almost underway, but sadly, on the side of Platoon, I think they actually did select Gene as one of the banned brawlers. So we're waiting for the admins to confirm basically exactly what is going on. We think we've rectified it, or we think it's actually going to be replayed rather than 3T actually getting a win for that. But again, we're just double checking and making sure. So don't worry about it. It's all fine. You know, if you need to go get a drink or snack and something like that, now's probably the time to actually go through it whilst we're actually waiting for this first series to get underway. Technically, it is underway. Just we've had a little bit of trouble, so it's just one of those things. But, you know, going back to it, Teddy, you are right there. You know, sometimes it can be lack of experience. Sometimes it can just be a simple mistake. It's probably something I would definitely do. You know, probably something, you know, people have done in the past as well. But it's like I said, it definitely won't be the last time, but we'll see what happens going forward. But, you know, this is still the first series. If anyone's just joined us, we still haven't actually started the first set as of yet. We almost did, though. We were very close, very lucky. But, you know, sadly for us, we probably jinxed it in some way. Talk about experience. Maybe if we didn't actually mention that word, they would actually be, you know, getting the first set underway, and we'll probably go into the second set by now. But it's fine. These things happen. It's on a rare occasion, but it doesn't matter though. So we'll have to see what happens between 3T and Platoon very shortly.
Yeah, it seems that the admins said that because they played a banned brawler, they are giving the first game to 3T. Okay. It was what I assumed. I actually have some more familiar names there on Platoon. They are the team I know better of the two. So yeah, I'm curious to see how that is going to be impacting things, because I assume that if I know a team, they're probably not the worst, but it's not starting off too well for them here, as 3T is gonna get the quick goal in, and Platoon, they are already in a bit of trouble here in set 1.
Yeah, he was absolutely right about the ruling in game number 1. I'm never going to question you again. And as we go forward, 3T already going with the ball, going straight to the other side. Just managed to get stopped. See, of course, with the Max, he had that respawn immunity, and he obviously had enough DPS to actually push him away and go back forward. But now we're going to see what they can do here, as they're just playing passive to see exactly where they're going with the ball. They know it's on that right side, and Leica is going to try and go for it anyway, but at the same time trying to push back a couple of players. You can see Tix there just trying to keep him back with that 8-bit.
Yeah, some longer range fights right now as we are in a bit of a stalemate. Nice super from Boris, I think it is. I believe it's Boris or Barris.
I think it's Barris. Yeah. Yeah, don't worry, I struggled a little bit as well. You know, when it comes to different fonts, that's it, I'm in deep trouble. But luckily, I just managed how to read that one, no problem. But as you can see, you've got one of the players in 3T actually trying to go for the flank here, but it doesn't work out in his favour. I wouldn't say it was over-aggression, he was just trying to at least get a different angle to sandwich his opponents, but he already got caught. The synergy on Platoon seems to be a little bit better here, but just having a bit of trouble just trying to get some damage done and trying to get the flank going so they can at least get some of the strategic push involved to try and make this into a tie. But 3T are in a great spot. They're just taking down Stady just then. They're already 1-0 up, and Platoon have only got 25 seconds to make something happen here.
Yeah, and because they picked the ban brawler Gene in game 1, they are already a game behind. So 3T in 15 seconds, unless we see something from Platoon, it is gonna be over. They have a bit of a chance there, but no, Artikizen is able to pick up that nice kill, and that will end things for Platoon in set number 1 as 3T pick it up.
Yeah, that's a good play there from 3T, kind of what we expected there. Very early goal to start with, and then, you know, it was ballers in their court at the end of the day. You know, they could play passive, they can wait for them to push him, but, you know, you can see there wasn't really enough damage coming out on the side of Platoon. They had the angles, they had what they needed, but I do feel like in some areas they did have some good coordination and made sure that they were watching the flanks behind. Like you saw that from 3T, just making sure they're trying to, you know, get some kind of positional advantage, but it just didn't work out, which is a little bit sad for them, because there was times where they held mid control perfectly, but then again they didn't do too much with it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I feel like Platoon struggled quite a bit. 3T overall just had some better teamwork, which, you know, at this level of play is gonna be a very big difference maker. I think Platoon were looking much more for like individual duels, and it just wasn't ever going their way, so it was really hard to find an opening and get a solid push going. This is gonna be set number 1 already going the way of 3T. We got a couple more to go for this match. Let's give a bit of a look at our maps perhaps, so we can find out what is gonna be up next.
Absolutely, because, you know, from what we saw from that first set, it was a good start from 3T. It seems to be a lot more dominant than we expected. It's like I said, you know, during the first, maybe second set, we'll get a flavour, you know, some ingredients of what we're going to expect going forward. But, you know, Platoon don't look too bad, but we're going to have to check the stats. It's very difficult because technically, even though that was an entire set, it was only one game to go off with, and it wasn't really too much. It just felt like, you know, 3T got an early goal, and then they were just like, well, do you know what? You know, let's try and keep this, you know, to try and keep the lead in any way we can, and then use that comp to our advantage when they couldn't really figure out exactly what to do. Because this is what happens when you lack an experience. You know, you can waste a lot of time in terms of like your preparation, and if you don't execute, you know, all the strats or all your preparation you had going forward, then you're just going to ride that struggle bus even further into no man's land and lose the set. It's very, very tough. But, you know, it's like I said, it's one game. It's very hard to judge off, you know, just a few minutes of playing.
Yeah, I agree. Once again, we didn't really get to see a whole lot. It was pretty much just one push, one fight that they won, and afterwards it was just a stalemate around the center. No one was really winning. They kept just, you know, getting trades off. But when no one has control, it does mean that no one is able to find more control. So it was really just that one fight early on to you know, show us what they could do. Yeah, I mean, it never looks too good when you pick a ban brawler in the first game of the match. It is usually not the best of signs. We will see if they are able to come back from that in a bit. As yeah, I'm not entirely sure if the players are taking a while to ready up or what is going on exactly behind the scenes. But yeah, it's always like that. When someone picks a banned brawler, somehow it just creates discussions and fights, and yeah, people have to um, turn off some fires.
That's all right. We can talk for days anyway, so they could take 10 minutes, 10 hours to prepare. It's all right. It's perfectly fine. There's only one engagement I would have said that they could have turned things around on the side of Platoon. When one of the players on 3T actually got behind him and got another, trying to be a bit more aggressive in terms of that positional advantage. Once they've actually, coordinated well, and I wouldn't say coordinated well, he basically just went behind him, but just went a little bit too close in terms of range. That was their moment to push, and that was their time to at least try and keep them back and actually force the situation to occur. But it seemed like they were still sitting back. So I wouldn't say it's pressure, it's just the lack of aggression there. When you smell an advantage, like with any of your tier 1 teams, they'll all push it like anything. Or what they do is they normally predict if they're going to get a kill and go forward with the objective as they're doing it. So they're trying to, killing two birds with one stone there. But literally, they got that first kill and they just didn't really take the advantage of it, which was a little bit strange. It's not something we're actually used to, but it's like I said before, it's the first series, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, there is still quite a bit of to come just in this match, but later on with a couple more matches as well. I mean, it's definitely a way to kick things off here with our first set. Yeah, this, I think happens much more often with those lesser experienced teams. A bit of a highlight from the one game we actually got. Actually, that was from the first game, but yeah, not entirely sure what to take out of that one. Barris, as we could see with the early goal, afterwards it was very much a stalemate for the rest of game number 1. Neither of the teams really able to open things up, but since Treaty had the goal lead, it did mean that they were able to defend off any pushes from Platoon and secure that first set.
The Belarusian team still have a lot of work to do. It's currently 1-0 in the series. Thank you for still staying with us and joining us as it is. It is the first series of the day. It is a best of 5. We've only gone through the first set so far. Probably wondering, why is it a little bit slow? Well, we have a few difficulties here and there. We're just trying to get the players all ready and set up, raring to go. We know we want you to see as many games as possible. You want to see less of us and more of the games, completely understandable. I would probably say the exact same thing if I was in your shoes, but thank you for being patient and biding your time. But so far, we are going to go into that second set very soon, and we still got another series straight afterwards, which is going to be definitely a great one between Max 2 and Esprit. So, that'll be the Iraq team versus the Kazakhstan team, which should be a good one. But going back into the first series, you can see here that 3T Gaming won that first set, and then we'll be going into dry season very shortly.
Yeah, this is not a competitive map, by the way. The 4 first maps aren't parallel plays, will be if it comes down to the 5th and deciding set. It could get quite interesting. In the meantime, obviously, Bounty, it's usually a slower play, a bit less aggression, because the most important is to survive rather than find kills. Because yeah, even on a one-on-one trade, if you're the one that dies later, you are giving an extra star to your opponents. So that's something to always keep in mind, that really shapes the dynamics you can expect in Bounty. Here we go. Blue star is often the tiebreaker, or at least what forces some engagements early on. Sordelka backing off, but he won't make it out alive as Barris takes him down, and Treaty kick things off with a single star lead.
That's right, 3T with a good start, but Platoon are the one with the map control. It depends what they do with the control here. They haven't got as much cover, which is going to hinder them slightly. So if they want to try and get the job done, they need to try and get it done quick if possible and try and play that range game. But a couple of players that almost got taken down. Stadium has to take down Barris in the end. So Platoon are the ones with the lead, and it's like I said, that first set wasn't really a clear indicator of what to expect throughout this series, but Barris has taken even more damage here, and you can see there but Ardak's just trying to push him away as well. But Leica's also doing the exact same thing. Barris is trying to go for the flank here, and Platoon are just getting backed off. But at the same time, taking a little bit too much damage there as Tix was taken out, and now it's a tied game.
Yeah, Peep coming in here from Tree T. It's going to be going for Statty. A miss on the first try. The Tix is able to tank it with his last hurrah gadget. And that means that Platoon, they keep that lead just by having that tiebreaker blue star. 35 seconds left, and 3T, they need to find some more engagements.
Yeah, they certainly do indeed. Neither team really wants to, push or trying to make the first mistake. Some of these teams would normally force out the first mistake, but it looks like both teams are just waiting for that first mistake. Just being quite patient here. Platoon with a little bit more aggression, but you see 3T are just waiting for them to at least get that first shot off before the opportunity arises. There's only 10 seconds left. Barris is very far up, and the rest of the players are trying to catch up with him to make sure they can help him out in any way, shape or form. But a couple of players are already really weak, only on half HP, and you can see there. But I think it was tied in the end. But you saw there in the end, Platoon is the ones who managed to take that.
Yeah, Platoon was their first game on the board. Definitely a different dynamic than what we saw in Brawl. It seems like picking brawlers that aren't banned is working better for them in this set. Yeah, honestly, prior to this event, I wasn't familiar with any of the 3T players. I know two of them, I think, in Platoon. It's the Tix and Sordelka that I have seen play, but in really small events every single time. So it's really nice to see the guys in an event like Gamestars, where they have much nicer opportunities. Yeah, we'll see if they're able to seal the deal for Bounty. They will need to take another win. I feel like, just on paper, because I'm a bit more familiar with them, they would be the team I give a slight advantage to. Just because, as a caster, usually if you know a team, it's more likely that, they're better because they're more well-known. But yeah, this is not what the scoreboard is indicating just yet. Once again, some mistakes early on in that first set give a bit of an interesting result. It's really hard to really tell, if 3T really deserved the set, in the sense were they the better team in Brawl, or were they the better team in just one game? And then obviously a bit of a blunder from Platoon in that first one. We will find out though how Bounty goes down as we are hopping in. Once again, the same comps on both sides. Actually, I think that Iker switched off the Nani to get to the Mr. P and match Daddy's Mr. P on the left-hand side.
You're spot on in terms of predictions when you recognise some of the players. There's also that phrase Caster's Curse as well, so we'll see if Teddy's actually jinxed 3T in any way as we go to the second set, but should be okay though, like I said, if they've got some experience, they should be fine. And already you can see there that they've taken a lead 4-2. They're trying to get back to that passive defensive setup to make them push forward, and I think what you can see with 3T, they're trying to catch out Platoon, where hopefully one of them will just be over-aggressive, but you see that ball come through. And it looks like Tix is actually one who actually takes out our Dak skin there as he managed to go through. But even then, though, Platoon are the ones that are in the lead, and 3T, you have to push up and try and force out the situation when they get the opportunity.
Yeah, they have a nicer comp to find an opening, just because Stu can struggle a bit with all that cover to find some angles, especially facing two throwers and Mr. P that is a bit of a hybrid when it comes down to, a regular brawler and a thrower. So far, 3T trying to get some better positioning, a push coming in from Sordelka, but he's not able to capitalize too much on it just yet, and it does mean that Platoon, they keep the lead for now, and with roughly 20 seconds on the clock, 3T are going to need to make some sort of a push, otherwise it's going to be too late for this set.
Yeah, 13 seconds left. Our Dake Skins just on that right side, trying to push up. Lycos also trying to do the same if they can. Only 7 seconds remaining. Barris is trying to look to try and take out the top left opponent, but he doesn't seem to be able to. It's a possibility, but it could be going to Platoon's way, and it does. Wins at 5-4 after all that fiasco at the end, and sadly they just couldn't take out one of those players. I can't remember who it was from the top of my head, but it was only on about just roughly 800 HP. And Platoon are the ones who actually tied things up going forward. So it looks like they're shaking off the nerves a little bit, a little bit of pressure at the start, but they seem to be a little bit more than a comfortable position in comparison to what we saw 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, it was definitely much better on their end. Brawl was just very stale. This set was still pretty, standard and not very flashy either, but they definitely played quite a bit better. Kills-wise, it does seem like it was actually all tied up in this set. I'm not entirely sure if we only had 6 kills in the entire set, but it could very much be possible. And yeah, overall close and getting those important kills, those that give a bit more stars. They didn't start off with the lead both times, I think. And it was later on that they managed to get another kill or two, which made the difference for Platoon.
Yeah, the only difference is the big one is for Platoon with the map presence, an extra 13,500 damage, which is quite a lot comparison. You saw they had, they had the aggression there. They had a mid control throughout most of the set, not just in one of the games. And you can show they were definitely trying to make something happen there and trying to force out the situation. But it's very difficult when you've got a team like 3T where their defense is so good and you've got to, wait for them to make even the tiniest mistakes to even punch a hole through and then try and take them down from there. But the third map will be on Deep Diner. So what's your thoughts on this map and mode just in general from your opinion, Teddy?
Well, it's an interesting one. You got quite a bit of cover, quite a bit of walls to work around. This is why I would be expecting some throwers, perhaps Mr. P once again, possibly some tanks as well to get some of the most advanced positioning. I feel like Sandy can do pretty well on this map as well. So yeah, I'm curious to see. We had a lot of Mr. P in that previous set. Not really my go-to pick for the previous map either. Maybe those guys just really like Mr. P or are stuck in last month's meta where he was very dominant. Now, not so much, I would say. So I'm curious to see what kind of comps they go for. Something to keep in mind as well, especially when it comes down to those teams that qualified in some regional qualifiers from some lesser known regions of Brawl Stars, is that very often there are some more like region specific metas, some comps that are a lot more popular in certain countries or certain regions, and it does seem like they are going for some pretty standard stuff on this map. You have the 8-bit in the center. The turret can easily be placed and protected for a long amount of time. The Bardies are really strong as well, and on the left-hand side, this is gonna be the difference maker, as we have a Sandy on Ilker, I'm not so sure, and then Sordelka on the Colonel Ruffs.
Don't worry, my pronunciation is probably worse than yours, so don't worry about it at all in the slightest. But yeah, you're right. In terms of comps, yeah, it's just the Sandy and the Ruffs in terms of difference. But we'll have to see if it does make any kind of difference. Like I managed to get a nice kill on Tix there, but pushed in probably because of the fact that, he's already on very low HP. It's just a matter of time. He's hoping to get some damage done before he got cleaned up. But 8 gems already for 3T. This is the experience showing here. He had some great control earlier, and now Platoon is trying to force out the situation, just trying to keep them back, just keep that damage count up high. They know that the map presence from Platoon was much better than theirs before, and now they need to try and continue that aggression. Obviously not too aggressive, they just need to hold that mid control so they can collect the next 2 gems. And now they've got them, they've got to try and back away if they can. But it depends on the scenario here, where only one of the players have been taken down, but look at that though. He's only on 1173 as the Ruffs is trying to push in, but he knows that he can't because he's not in the position to at all in the slightest. But it doesn't matter though, Tix takes out Leica, and there we have it. A much more of a convincing win, and in a convincing fashion as well from 3T compared to set number 2.
Yeah, I think it was definitely their most convincing game so far. Obviously, Bounty, wasn't very convincing on their end, as Platoon kind of dominated through that one, at least had more consistently the lead. Brawl, hard to analyze. The one game we saw ended up being very still, not a lot going on after their initial push, which wasn't too good of a sign either. Like, getting a nice push is really great, but then if for a minute and a half you're not really winning, not really losing, it's fine because you scored early on, but it makes it hard for us to really make out their full potential. This was much better, much more convincing, and considering the matchup was fairly even as well, almost mirror comps, and I don't think Ruffs was giving like a massive disadvantage to Platoon either. Yeah, we are going to be seeing the Sandy matched now, as the Barley and Sandys face each other on the lanes, and the middle is going to be the 8-bit battle.
Yeah, I love that as well. They just thought, well, do you know what? We won't even try and counter your comp. We'll just actually match it and see if we can do a better job. So that's confidence oozing from Platoon. Obviously not too happy about what happened last time. And our Daxkin's got that first kill on the board on the left side for himself. And even then, Tix hasn't really taken any damage here. He is trying to be, pain in the backside, but he'd done a lot of damage to our Daxkin. Our Daxkin's going to have to pull back just a little bit. Barris is in a world of trouble here, as Sordelka actually managed to take him down straight afterwards. But this is a much better performance from Platoon. This should be their game mode. This is the type of game mode they should excel at, They're very good at getting map control, but not too sure what to do with it afterwards. But it seems like now they've got the map control in the hold in the middle in most of these sets. This is like the perfect mode for them to now try and excel and push him back even further, which they're trying to do. But our Daxkin's taking so much damage here as, he's trying to retaliate in somehow, some way. The coordination wasn't really fully there, but Barris now is just trying to clean up Staddy, and he actually managed to clean up Staddy no problem. So as you can see, Sordelka take out Leica, still 6-5, 7-5 now in terms of gem count, Teddy.
Yeah, it is quite close, as the Tix is not really looking to get that gem just yet. It's a bit too far from him. Sordelka wants to give it a bit of a peek, but it is going to cost him his life. Ilker able to pick up another kill there onto Staddy, and we should be seeing a countdown any second now in favor of 3T. The middle area is covered in that Bardi super, but Artiskin is just able to pick it up anyways and get that countdown going for 3T.
Platoon have the numbers, but it doesn't matter because one of the players on 3T will respawn shortly, which they have done. Like is now there to try and help with the cover. They're just backing away from the slight respawn immunity, but even then we'll be able to do something. No, they will not. They needed a lot more time to try and make something happen. The synergy was there in terms of the push, but it was just way too little too late then, because of course they were just way too spread out. But that was unlucky from Platoon. That was a much better job from what we've seen compared to that last game. They had the control, they couldn't hold it for long enough to try and continue rallying those gems towards in their favor. But again, 3T showing that experience, knowing that they can at least try and come back with a little bit more patience, which they had done.
Yeah, 3T played this one much better. Yeah, I'm really curious to see how the next sets are gonna go, as 3T is catching a bit of a lead now. It's still definitely a possible comeback from Platoon, but a bit of momentum coming into the fourth set doesn't hurt for sure, as 3T, I mean, just much more kills, much more gems.
Wow.
Although the damage is quite close, it's just that ability to close things out, to finish those fights and clean things up properly that made the difference here for 3T.
Yeah, you see some teams which are tier 2 trying to push that tier 1 boundary, or if they're low tier 1 pushing through, where the damage is there, but the problem is, if you're not doing anything with it, sometimes you just feel like you're delaying the inevitable, or you kind of can't figure out exactly how to try and push through some of the team's strong defense. But 3T definitely had a lot more areas on the map to work with. You saw there that Platoon normally are the more of an aggressive team in terms of their control, but I kind of feel like 3T had more strategies in terms of how to break their setup and then go forward, which is a clear sign of adaptation there from 3T, and that's obviously adaptation can come through in terms of how much experience you have, so especially playing on a tournament setting. But nearly a 2 KD, very good from them, 24 gems, not really too much of a surprise there. And it just shows about what I spoke about, where just having 7,000 damage and executing that many kills is huge.
Yeah, getting some damage done is obviously very nice, but closing out those kills and being able to finish off your opponents will be creating a lot more space for you, and it was very clear that 3T were doing a much better job at that. Bot drop is going to be up next, one of the more open maps in the game at the moment, the most open map when it comes down to Siege. Definitely an interesting one. We've seen some very interesting meta, like just evolution in general. As we used to just, get the Pipers and those long-range brawlers. Now, very often, we are going to be seeing some double, even triple healer comps just to make sure they can stay alive as long as possible. I'm talking Jean that is banned here, but obviously also Pam also Poco, Byron. Those three are available. Those could be a pretty strong comp. Sometimes you even see just 2 healers, but with a max to just ensure that extra movement speed and that extra control over the map, as it's a bit faster to navigate from a bolt all the way on the left and one that spawns on the top right. So yeah, this is kind of what I expect to see here. I would love some more traditional comps as well. Getting that Piper in play would be lovely. But we will find out. We will find out.
That's right, Teddy. It's just a matter of time before we go into this next set. Platoon have shown some, some flair, some sign of life. There is light at the end of a tunnel for these guys. And it's not like, they're in deep trouble or anything like that. We've seen some whitewashes in the past. We've seen some clear 3-0s where it just wasn't even close. And it's not like, this team are having any trouble. Like, I'd feel sorry for, any one of these teams going against, one of these two teams we're watching now actually go into the decider match, because they're going to be thinking to themselves, well, they're a tough nut to crack at some stage. But Platoon, I feel like, okay, we know they're not the best team in Europe in terms of like the skill gap, but they have the pieces to the puzzle sometimes, depending on the mode. It's just a matter of actually being able to, actually do something with it. It's very, very difficult. Again, it is based on experience, but 3T, like you said earlier, the experience is coming out nicely. And, like you mentioned earlier, it does depend on the comp picks, especially on this map, because, it could make a huge difference. You mentioned Pam earlier, we've seen him, seen her a lot on ladder, but we haven't seen him too much, in competitive play, maybe now and again, but that's about it. But as we're going to go into this full set, and if you're just joining us, we're still in our first series in this best of 5. 3T are currently up 2-1 against Platoon as we head into game number 1 in set 4.
Yeah, we have the Crow on both sides, which I actually really like. Crow providing that extra 40% anti-heal if his opponents are hit by his shots. Definitely is really good against those healers. It's just the Pam in this game. Barty provides some heals as well for 3T. Sustain is just very important on this map because there's not a lot of cover, so you are going to be taking a lot of damage, and being able to reset from one fight to another can make a big difference.
Yeah, Barrett's doing a great job with that Barney, just making sure that it's very difficult to even try and come close to him, and actually making sure that 3T Platoon do actually keep their distance. But you saw Barrett's got a kill there. 3T already on 7 bolts. They did get that first siege spot quite easily, but now they're on 8-0 here, Teddy, which is absolutely unheard of. We'll get a level 9 siege bot going through. Again, another kill to their name. And Leica also took out Sodelka as they're going through, and that's getting actually took out Stady as well. So this is going to be very, very tough as Leica's taken out Tix in the process, and this could be all said and done here, Teddy, as already is only on 29%, just manages to survive. But this next siege bot is obviously, if they actually do manage to get this one with 3 bolts already, it's going to be all said and done.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good for them so far. 20 seconds left, and Platoon haven't picked up a single bolt this game so far. So Delka is not able to pick up the first one. This is going to be 3T picking up this first game of Siege and getting to a match point in the process. Yeah, not much of a challenge here from Platoon, to be honest. They weren't really able to do anything in this game, as they haven't picked up a single bolt in 3 preparation phases. That's not very convincing on their end.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. That was literally night and day. Like, we saw a slightly convincing performance from 3T in the last set in the first game, but this one was just completely different. They got pretty smashed during the start, but they're trying to make a comeback, try and get some bolts, but literally just nothing happening. Nothing was working for them. What do you feel went wrong for Platoon? Because it just seemed like there was so many weaknesses on their side. It was just too much to count.
Yeah, they weren't just not able to do anything, to be honest. The 8-bit was melting them down from afar. The Barley playing off those walls very well. There aren't a lot of walls on bot drop, but he was able to make the couple of walls that are on those sides count as double, and to just, assist his team very well, providing his heals with his gadget. 2 for those quicker resets, being able to stay full HP between engagements, and it just makes a big difference. I think that the Pam wasn't the worst goal, but it was getting countered by the Crow. The Stew was just getting beamed down from afar before he could even dive onto anyone. So just a very harsh time there for Platoon, as they weren't able to find any sort of value. I don't think they won a single fight. They may have picked up like a kill or two, but they didn't win a proper fight. And that just meant they never had any sort of control in this game.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. It felt like watching a lightweight, watching it playing against a heavyweight. It literally, like, you know, it was just so strange to, you know, not see him pick up like barely any bolts at all. It was just madness. You know, I think that's the first time we've seen anything like that. Maybe including the first week of the groups, but that was a not even just trying to understand how that set went, but that was just a huge statement from 3T. You know, that's going to destroy Platoon's momentum going to game number 2. I'm not really too sure what they can do, if they ever, you know, try and maybe a comp change, maybe it got to change what they want to try and do in terms of execution. It just, nothing was going in their way, and there wasn't really too many individual battles. It was more they were just getting picked off just a little bit too easily here and there, as both teams do have the same comps now compared to that last game. And let's see if Platoon can try and make any difference there, as they had a lot of trouble in that last game.
Yeah, we have the full-on mirror matchup this time, as Platoon decide to take some inspiration from Treaty's comp. It is not really gonna make a big difference, as Treaty once again get that first siege bot, not a single bolt leaking the way of Platoon. And I'm talking about leaking because it's so important when it comes to siege. If you don't get the first one, any bolts that leak from the dominant team can make the difference towards achieving that third and final siege bot that can be absolutely game changing. So far, not a single one for Platoon.
Yeah, 3T have got an incredible defensive setup as they're trying to go for these bolts. You can see that they leave the siege bot going a little bit longer than necessary. Normally most players, or like most teams, would actually tag along with the bot just to make sure they can try and increase the kill count whilst going forward. But they're trying to collect the bolts, like more prioritizing that instead of actually just going in for the kill straight afterwards. But Platoon are actually the ones who finally get their first siege bot in 2 games, and we'll have to see how 3T are going to defend that. But they've already got 5 bolts themselves. But don't get me wrong, though, Platoon will catch up a little bit here during this process, but the siege bot's already been taken out almost. It's doing, you know, a fair bit of damage now, but already the damage had already been done earlier, doing so much to that siege bot during the halfway course of the map. But now Platoon are behind by approximately 23%. We'll have to see what Platoon can do here as they try and put a dent in the armor.
Yeah, they need that final siege, but are able to pick up a couple of bolts. Ilker not able to find the ticks just yet, beams him down now. And things are looking good for 3T as they pick up a couple of bolts of their own. It is going to be really close, actually. It is a tie, which does mean that 3T should be done with this match, unless we have a crazy dive in the last couple of seconds coming in from Platoon. They will need an amazing dive, but it is, oh, never mind, it is not really that possible. They're going for it. They will find quite a bit of damage, actually. It is close. 4% difference, but 3T secured the defense. That was a close one.
Oh, that was ridiculous. I literally was about to say it's going to be close to a miracle. That miracle almost happened. Only out by 4%, 32 to 28. I'm sure the side of 3T are probably like lift up the t-shirt a little bit, thinking like, no, just a little bit relieved, sweating during the last moments of that game. But 3T do take that, not only the game and the set, but of course the series as well, which means they will be going into the winners match later on this evening. So congratulations to them. Commiserations to Platoon. Again, you know, they actually do adapt quite well, but 3T's, it's just for them, it's just a little bit too late. If they didn't get that tie earlier with those bolts, Platoon would have definitely won that second game going into the final game.
Yeah, it was definitely a good attempt, a very nice dive from Platoon, but yeah, just not enough, and even then they would have needed a bit of a miracle to make it work. I feel like they already kind of got that miracle, getting so much value of that dive. Like, you don't see dives getting 50% damage every day. That's what they managed to do here, and I feel like asking for that extra 4% or 2%, whatever it was, it does seem like it was very close, but I do think that they like got as much as was physically possible to get out of this one. So a good attempt from Platoon to clutch things up towards the end, but it is 3T running away with this first match of the day.
That's right, you saw that just over 16,000 damage, and we're looking at the highlights now just throughout the entire course of the series. We'll ignore that goal from Barris as we're going forward. But yeah, you know, they got most of that kills and damage in that first initial game. But we can see for Platoon, the adaptation is fair, but, you know, for that first game compared to the second game was absolutely nuts.
Yeah, Gem Grab was once again something that 3T seemed to be pretty confident at. First game, very convincing. The second one, a bit less, but they still played it really well, and Platoon challenged them a bit more. After that one, I have to say it was pretty much just a 3T show, as Siege was pretty one-sided. Some attempts here and there in the second game. First game of Siege, though, extremely one-sided. Not a signal bolt picked up by Platoon across that entire first game. They did get a Siege bot in game number 2, but they weren't able to find too much value from it. So yeah, overall, I would say 3T very much deserved to pick this one up. They were the better team, and that means that they will be moving on to the winner finals, whereas Platoon will have an elimination match coming up a bit later after we get through the second semifinal.
Definitely, yeah. I think that comp change made a quite a big difference in that second game, and you know, going for a mirror matchup instead of going for the counter. And as you can see, these are the stats from the entire series of this first match. Again, damage-wise, only about 9,000. We've seen a lot of 8-bit. We've seen a lot of Barley. You know, seen the Stu there and the Sandy. So pretty standard picks in all fairness compared to what we've seen. You know, we see the 8-bit now and again anyway, but I think this is probably the most we've seen of him in terms of picks throughout the series across the board. Kills though, only 8 kill difference in comparison. So not really too much into it, but it just shows that 3T had a lot better objective execution and plans of attack in terms of when they want to try and strategize over what they want to do in each game in comparison.
Yeah, this is our first match already done. Match 2 is going to be up next. That will be Max 2 versus E-Sprit. Yeah, definitely an interesting one ahead of us. Once again, 2 teams that personally I am not the most familiar with. Probably the first time I see them at play. But yeah, it's always nice to meet some new talent, especially for some countries that haven't had as many opportunities to shine just yet. Gamestars is there for you. We have a bit of a video profile for you guys.
السلام عليكم، رمضان كريم على الأمة الإسلامية. أول شيء أنا اسمي محمد بدر، عمري 19 سنة، من سوريا. المعروف داخل اللعبة باسم ابن سوريا، مقيم بمصر حاليا. بلعب اللعبة من أيام البيتا. اللعبة بلعبها من أيام البيتا، يعني من زمان كتير. تعرفنا أنا وتيمي تقريبا سنة ونص أو أكتر. اللاعب رقم 2 اسمه محمد، المعروف بكاي. واللاعب رقم 3 اسمه أحمد، وكمان اسمه باللعبة أحمد. رقم 2 عمره 13 سنة، ورقم 3 عمره 21 سنة. أحسن من مود بالنسبة لإلي مود الدو شو داون. ليش؟ لأنه بحسه مود مختلف، فيه متعة بالنسبة لإلي، وهي أول بطولة عالمية بنشارك فيها. بنكسب بطولات محلية، بس بطولات عالمية لا، هي أول مرة الصراحة. فترة لعبي بتتراوح ما بين الساعتين، من الساعة للساعتين يوميا. ليش البطولة بالذات شاركنا فيها؟ هي البطولة أنا عرفتها عن طريق يوتيوبر بحبه كتير اسمه وسيم، قناته اسمها XD Games. عن طريقه عرفتها ولقيتها بطولة حلوة وغير البطولات كلها شاركنا فيها. هدفي اني اوصل، يعني اني ادي اداء حلو وحس حالي إني عملت اللي علي، بس هذا هدفي. بالنسبة لخصومي أنا ما بعرف شي عن خصومي، أنا عندي تشكيلاتي الخاصة، منفوت ومنقول يا رب ومنلعب. وبدي وجه رسالة لتيمي، هي آخر شي بالنهاية، إنه مهما كان التيم اللي ضدكم قوي لا تستسلموا. يعني ممكن بأي لحظة الموازين تختلف وتصير لصالحنا، وهذا كل شي بدي أقوله. السلام عليكم.
That was a good interview there. You know, they say they haven't really got much experience in terms of like, you know, on the world stage, but in terms of local events, they compete in probably, you know, quite a lot of community cups, you know, local events in terms of like maybe they're part of the region, maybe just on their country alone as from a national standpoint. So, you know, you could say the experience is there in terms of like competition, but I think on a bigger playing field now, especially with the representation, because I feel like Max 2, I think they placed second in their wildcard qualifier, and they're playing against a team, eSport, who is actually placed third in Kazakhstan. So we don't really know too much about them, but that interview was a clear testament of what we may expect, because at least we know that, you know, they've been scrimming a lot, they've been practicing, they, you know, a clear indicator that they have the experience necessary. It's just, you know, on a much bigger playing field, this is kind of their time to say, you know, we're here to play. We want to try and not only make a statement, but show that, you know, in terms of the country we come from and the region and what we want to do, they just want to make something happen here and try and prove to people that, you know, they're, you know, not here to mess around and try and make an impact.
Yeah, I am very curious to see how they come at play, as he did say that they really liked Showdown, which is not gonna be one of the game modes for today. So hopefully he does like the other game modes a bit as well. Our bans are coming through. Poco will be the ban from Max 2. eSprit will be banning the Gene. Gene seems to be quite a consistent ban so far today. Poco was banned quite a bit yesterday, leaving place for some more throwers and just overall brawlers that are a bit more vulnerable to tanks, just because, you know, if Poco is not there, there's going to be a lot less tanks to worry about either, because they can struggle a bit without a good healer. Byron is still going to be available, still a very, very strong healer that can definitely hold his own and help his teammates very well. So they can't completely rule out any sorts of you know, tanks and healers either, but it is going to make things a bit more predictable when it comes down to those team compositions. Obviously, we have yet to see our maps and game modes for this match, but they will have a huge effect on how good those bans are.
Definitely will do indeed. So first set we are going to be playing on Hard Rock Mine. Second set will be on Factory Rush. Third one will be on Sunny Soccer, and then if we go to sets 4 and 5, it will be on Split and Open Plaza. And you're right though, because it'll probably give you, and you know, the teams we're going to watch it in a minute, a clear indicator from those bands. Normally it's the same 5 to 10 bands, you know, from what we normally see, you know like the Barney, the Bell, or the Byron, etc. But you know, we, like you said, you know, we see Gene sometimes, not all the time, but now we've seen it, you know, 2 series in a row. It's quite funny, you know, quite a funny indicator as we discuss this. But you're right though, you know, we did see a lot of Poco banned in that last group. So I think a lot of the times, you know, a lot of these teams, especially around this tier list, in terms of like the tier in competition with the players, not the actual ballers, it seems like, you know, they have different ways of trying to ban some of these ballers. So instead of, you know, banning like a certain baller because of the fact that they can't handle it against, you know, higher skilled players, but it's more the fact that it's just something they just all agree on, they just don't want to work with. And if none of them really use the baller that much, you know, one in particular, but they're very strong, then it's another good reason why they may actually ban them. But you'd feel like with some of the lower tier teams as well, that they would have a lot more research in terms of like VOD reviews and try and go through the possibilities of what some of these teams could do. But the problem is they're not against, you know, what some of these tier 1 teams you'd normally see. So it's very difficult for both teams to try and understand what each other are doing. So this is where, you know, adaptation and trying to damage your opponent is going to be another way to try and figure out who could take these series. But, you know, like I said in the previous match, set 1 or set 2 will be another indicator on what we could expect in the in this series coming up.
Yeah, I will definitely be looking out at those comps for Hard Rock Man and Factory Rush. They are both actually they used to both be competitive maps. Hard Rock Mine, sorry, still is. Factory Rush was for a very, very long time, pretty much the entire last year. This year, it's not anymore, but it does mean that those players that have been playing for a bit longer, as we saw in the interview as well, definitely very familiar with it, definitely have scrimmed it in the past. So it should be closer to those levels of knowledge that you can expect from those current competitive maps. Hard Rock Mine in general is a map where you have quite a couple of options. In the middle at the moment, it is mostly 8-bit and Max that you will be seeing. Gene has been making some very good appearances over there as well. On the lanes, Sandy is a really solid pick. Throwers can do very well too, but also Rosa can be super strong at sneaking up on the sides. And indeed, we have a Rosa here coming up on
Speak of the devil.
Ahmed. Yup, and the Rico on Al. Rico is going to be a solid pick, but he should be switching lanes because it's definitely, the better answer from Esprit to take down the Rosa. But he seems to be very set in holding on to the left side, and it's going to be costing the life of his two teammates.
Absolutely, yeah. Al's just trying to stay alive at the moment, just trying to keep on that left side. We haven't seen too much Rico, in the past, so it's nice to see Rico come back again. And you saw there that Zara is just backing away. He's only 3,400 HP, but he's just trying to regain it. But Al's just been an absolute nuisance as Meschief managed to take out one there. And they're pushing straight through. Absolutely no holds barred here as they're trying to get what they can. But you could say that was a little bit of an overextension there. Ahmed tried to get behind him and got positional advantage, but Zara was also trying to do the same thing, trying to push through. Al's now trying to keep him at bay with that Rico, and actually does the job perfectly. And there's both Ahmed and Zara were actually hovering around that one part of the map, and you can see it just wasn't enough cover as both players were, in a really bad position. Now in a passive stance, and Esprit are looking very good here, Teddy, as it's now 9-3, getting ready to pick up that next gem.
Yeah, it is going to be in the center right now, but no easy access to it just yet, as Ahmed is able to catch those couple of gems and get things a bit closer. It is going to be a bit of a struggle to get that final gem for Esprit, just because M2 has some very solid control right now, but 5 gems on a Rosa is definitely not an ideal situation, as you do tend to want to sacrifice your Rosa to create some more space, and she's just not really able to get too aggressive as you would like to. Because of that. Oh, Syria is going to be falling. Ahmed is able to retrieve the gems, though. He is going to get super down to 400 HP, falls to Mischief, and that's going to be the countdown for Esprit now.
Certainly is indeed, as Syria is trying to push behind him and managed to get him in the end, managed to get Armin as he's trying to push on forward, but it's not looking too good for on the side of the opposite team. But Esprit's now still up 14-1. There's only a couple of seconds left. It's just way too little, too late. And they had a good comeback at the start there. They were holding their mid-ground and making sure to try and keep on the side back of Max 2. But Max 2 kind of fell apart. And it was weird during that first minute. It was very chaotic, very messy. And I don't really feel like either team could stand their ground. And it just wasn't, it was very unstable, I would probably say. It's probably the best way to describe it. But things kind of stabilised a little bit more towards the second half of the game, where you kind of realise that, they're trying to take their time a little bit more in terms of what they want to do, how they want to push. You saw a couple of players on Max 2 actually panicked quite a bit. I think it was Zara and I think it was Ahmed at the time, where both of them were just hovering around that little cove on the map geometry. I think they were just panicking. I think they were just relying on each other to try and back each other up and try and use that bait and switch technique, but it just wasn't happening the slightest. Their coordination was a little bit off, but the coordination and the synergy was much, much better towards the end. But by then, Esprit already walked away with it.
Yeah, it definitely did feel like a bit of a lower level match than our previous one. It was very chaotic, and I feel like both teams did a lot of mistakes. First of all, the Rico sticking to the left side when the Rosa just kept invading them was just like, I don't know. I feel like they should have been aware that it was the move to switch him around because he just deals so much more damage than a Sandy. Sandy is really great with like a burst, but you can't burst down a Rosa, right? She has too much HP, you need more damage on the long run, and Sandy has a lot less range, so the Rosa will be able to just catch up on her and on him, and take him down. Whereas Rico can get some nice bounces, try to play around cover, and get some longer range shots, and just overall a lot more damage. If you look at the super, the gadget, just the regular shots, much better at dealing with a Rosa. And on the side of Max 2, a bit of a trend that they liked to overextend with all their gems. Because they had a lot of control multiple times in the game. They were controlling much better, but they ended up dying with all their gems for sillier reasons than, you know, how you would usually lose your gem carrier. Your gem carrier shouldn't really die unless there is something like a gene pool or something along those lines. Otherwise, it's just that your position is way too aggressive for the situation.
Yeah, and even I was going to mention in that first game as well, Al with that Rico on the left side winning the 1v2 was just, you know, not just a statement, but it's an indicator. It was like, okay, you know, that really shouldn't happen. But again, that was just lack of coordination. I think, you know, in this game, small talk is very, very important, not just standard call-outs. Al just barely managing to win that fight on the top left, who's on 56 HP. Zara and Syria are now both trying to pull back, whilst Ahmed is on respawn, which he has done, which is beautiful stuff from him. And they're still just trying to hover around, trying to push up on the middle. Azara's taking out Al. Finally, Syria's taking out Mischief, and there's only one player left on the E-Split. So he's going to have to pull back, wait for the rest of his team to respawn, and try and push up on the middle.
Yeah, this is much better from M2. I was a bit confused at first why the Sprout kept fighting the Sandy instead of going for the Rico, which he hard counters. So it does make a lot more sense now. I really appreciate them for giving me a bit less of a headache. As it is sometimes hard for me when, you know, I see some stuff that like, you know, is pretty standard or should be at this level of play, but they're not able to get right just yet. So good way to rectify things here for M2. So far, I have to say, just a much more convincing win. They were able to play the fights correctly, go for the correct matchups as well, as Sprout is just a hard counter to Rico, just because you'll be able to deal much more damage. Not because it's a brawler that does more damage, but because you can catch him despite him hiding behind those angles. And if you hit him, it's 1,300 damage at once. Whereas Rico, you know, once you see that his shots reach you, you can kind of dodge out of the bounce, and then, you know, you only lost like 400 HP. So yeah, good stuff from Max 2, much more convincing. I appreciate them for playing their matchups correctly, sticking to the correct lanes and adapting when necessary. That just looked like, you know, just much more like competitive Brawl Stars to me. First game was very chaotic, very all over the place, people dying when they really shouldn't, and all that kind of stuff. This is much more professional, especially on the side of Max 2, and now we need some sort of an answer from eSprit. I doubt they would be bringing the Rico again, but you know, at this point, I'm not even too sure.
I know, it's mad. Like, when you see top teams going at it like that, you know, that's organized chaos. But that first game was literally just carnage and mayhem. You know, it's not that we couldn't predict it. I think it was just a lot of nerves were bouncing between both teams. I think, you know, Max 2 were kind of like super aggressive, sometimes over aggressive and just overextending. And sorry, not Max 2. eSport were probably thinking, like, what the hell? Like, what's going on here? Like, why is? Well, this ain't like the usual, like, you know, team we'd normally play. But yeah, like you said, Max 2 was a lot more organized, a lot better going into this. And this is the third and final game of set number 1. As Max 2 managed to take that last game to tie things up 1-0, and out already on that left side, and still managed to get taken down there.
Yeah, a bit of an overextension on the side of eSprit. But Max 2, they're not able to capitalize too much on it just yet. The Super won't find any connections there from the Rico. But now Syria has enough control with that Sprout wall to pick up those gems. Ahmed in a good spot to take down Al will do just that. And things are looking very good for Max 2, as they only need 2 more gems to get that countdown started.
Yeah, you're right though. This is definitely something similar you'd see in competitive Brawl Stars. But it's just, again, another match which is night and day compared to that first game. Nerves must have definitely kicked him in the backside a little bit in terms of what they wanted to try and do. I think it was kind of fell apart, and then in the second half of that first game, it made a huge difference. But look at this, so Eastbrit trying to now flank on both sides, and already a couple of people have been taken down. A trade occurred, but I can't really see it happening too much now, as Armin is trying to push up to see if he can take down Syria or Zara, but will he be able to? No, he does not, and he was way too weak anyway. Good play from Eastbrit and good attempt to try and at least take one of them down, but even then, no, they'd only have two brawlers or two of them opponents to try and push straight away downwards. It would have been a 3v2 scenario once one of them's respawned anyway on the side of Max 2, and it would have been all said and done. They've pretty much done their job there, even if he did trade out with one of the players with the gens. But again, Max 2, games 2 in 3 was exactly what we wanted to see and what we expected. We were a little bit, I think I'll probably say we're a little bit surprised on, you know, how much better they played in comparison to that first game. We thought that could be an indicator of, you know, both his teams having a little bit of, you know, a lot of messy engagements. But Max 2 have really proved to us that actually they're a lot better than we expected. And it's exciting to see what they do, not only these next sets, but if they do take the series, then how they match up later on.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. If you could maybe refresh my memory, is Max 2 the team that qualified through the wildcard qualifier?
Yes, they did. They placed third. Sorry, no, they placed actually second in the third wildcard qualifier.
Okay. I mean, it's definitely a lot more competitive to qualify from those wildcard qualifiers because they're not region locked, or at least not like, you know, like the regional qualifiers, whereas Eastbrit only faced other Kazakhstanese teams. So it's definitely something to take into account. I think this could be explaining this little gap in level we see between the two teams. Factory Rush is going to be up next, though. Very open map, a bit more similar to Bot Drop, but our teams are not here to mess around, as they are already ready to get into the action. And M2 was a super convincing start.
Yeah, not giving us a breather in the slightest, but that's fine though. You know, just like everyone at home and us casting here, we just want to see as many games as quickly as possible. As you see there, Zara's just trying to hold up middle ground. That's the first siege bot. Level 3 is going to come through, and Ahmed is just behind it to use that as protection to try and push through and take out anyone coming through. But Zara's taking out Al, Ahmed's taking out Ahmed. There's only one player left standing, as now they're trying to do their absolute best to take out the siege, but he's already done more than enough damage and more for what he's worth considering the level. And Eastbrit do have 2 bolts to their name, so they definitely can do something here. But then again, you know, you've got to look on the side of Max 2. They have mid control, they're collecting bots here. Sorry, the bolts, and it's very difficult. Al's trying to make that push with the ruffs. Will he be able to, though? I highly doubt it, as they've done so much here. Syria finally gets taken down as is in the open, and as I say that, both players were taken down on the side of Eastbrit. Only one left remaining, and everyone was taken down on the side of Max 2. But it doesn't matter, as they're the ones who got siege bot level 5.
Yeah, and they will pick up a couple extra bolts there. It does mean that bolt-wise it's all tied up, with the third and final preparation phase coming up. This means that Max 2 have the bolt lead, and actually, well, they don't even care because they're able to close things out and take the first game.
Yeah, that's fine. You know, we was expecting a third one possibly, but it didn't matter anyway because they managed to do additional damage using that siege bot's protection, whilst of course they were hitting the safe as well, so that's perfectly fine. But again, you know, another convincing win. Eastbrit showed, you know, a bit of flair towards, you know, during the after the third siege bot, which is perfectly fine. But again, it wasn't convincing enough. It was just basically trades. It wasn't any clean kills to then hold a setup in mid. So you could see they were still struggling quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like Max 2, you know, their first game of the day, it was really bad, honestly. It was pretty bad. But after that, they really woke up, and honestly, it just felt like a completely different team. Gem Grab looked really good on their end, and now in Siege, it's super convincing as well, closing things out in 2 Siege bots, not because they had to, but just because they could, is a great thing, because I mean, it's not like they would have lost that match if they decided to slow things down and go for the third siege bot, not go all in and dive on that on that second siege bot. So it wasn't like a risk they had to take, but they had the opportunity to do it. They made it work. So they're looking much more convincing, and I was having some doubts early on their end. They definitely clarified that for me, and now we need some sort of an answer from eSprit, because it's not looking so good so far.
That's right, indeed. Yeah, you mentioned earlier, you know, with Max 2, they're a typical competitive team where if they, you know, get placed in any kind of advantageous scenario, they are just going to take it like it's nobody's business. And as you can see, a couple of players have already gone down with a couple of trades, and the siege bot has already come through. So Sirius just going to use that as protection, but also at the same time taking down Mech Chief, already taking down a little bit of damage there, about a third, as already they're trying to delay that siege bot as much as possible. But as Al was trying to push through, Zaro's just sitting there waiting for him. Absolutely no problem there for him. But the siege bot, then again, has done a fair amount of damage. Also managed to take out Armin in the process, taking off 32%. And now they've still got a bit more time. But Sirius just taking down Al now twice in a row. Al's having, you know, a few issues where he's trying to push for those flanks and try and clean up, but it's just not happening. Armin's also been heavily damaged, and this is absolutely crazy from Max 2. I don't know what happened in that first game in the first set, but whatever they said or whatever they spoke about, you know, after that first game, it is clearly worked.
Yeah, they managed to turn things around and wake up. We have yet to see that on the side of eSprit, as they keep losing every single fight they engage. They will take down Ahmed, but look at this damage pouring down onto that Ike. That should be enough to close things out, and Max 2, they take the second set as well.
The problem with eSprit now is they're just not adapting. It's like, I'm not saying they've given up, of course, you know, they've still got another 3 sets to come back on if they can do that reverse sweep, but they're just struggling to, you know, read their opponents a little bit. And I kind of feel like, you know, we could probably make the assumption that Max 2 are either just playing out their mind in terms of strategies, or just riding the wave in terms of momentum. Because ever since that first game in the first set, you can tell that the nerves were definitely kicking in. The coordination just was not there. And now all of a sudden, it's like we're watching a completely different team. And, you know, we said it earlier that, you know, they placed second in that wildcard tournament, and you can't really predict some of these teams in the wildcard tournaments. But then again, in the first 2 wildcard tournaments, there's some big teams like AC Milan, etc., and Zero Zone Spain, and a few of the others actually qualified. So, you know, Max 2 are here for a reason. You know, we've seen it in an interview where they want to try and make something happen. The experience is there in terms of, you know, going through all those local tournaments. So it's nice to see that they've made such an impact. And speaking of impact, look at that though, almost double the damage. No siege bot damage taken, 23 kills compared to eSprit's 6.
Yeah, it was just very one-sided, and a couple of the kills as well out of those 6 were literally like trades, like, you know, a brawler taking his opponent down right after he goes down himself. We saw that a couple of times happen with the Carl, for example, that just physically he just couldn't take a single win. He had a couple of trades where he just, you know, on the flying hook coming back, he would take down his opponent that just took him down himself, but it would not be enough. Sunny Soccer is gonna be up next. Yet another map that is not in the current competitive map pool, so we will see how they can adapt. Already off the bat, we have something much more aggressive on the side of M2, whereas the Barley is gonna be a bit of a liability so far for eSprit, that he's not able to find much value. M2 with the goal only about 25 seconds in, and a convincing start already.
They are not mucking around. They're getting the game started quick, which we absolutely love. And already they're up 1-0, like you just mentioned, Teddy. But what can they do here? Finally, eSprit has actually been able to take one of them down going forward. But you saw that Al was trying to push through, but, you know, he's getting outranged, he's getting out-damaged. See them to take up Mech Chief. So now eSprit can't even push up anymore. They've just been, it's been delayed way too much. But Al trying to do everything he can to make sure that he can keep them back. But the aggression from Max 2 is just ridiculous. Mech Chief now has the ball, take it down that left side. And if Syria can at least take him down or do something here, again, an overextension. As you saw, Meschief and Armin were trying to, hold them back, but they just couldn't in that 1v2 scenario. Zara's just going to try and push up onto that right side. And if they do, then one of the players on eSplit will have to try and kick that ball into one of the corners to at least delay by another few more seconds. As Sirius taking down Meschief, Al's taking down Sirius, so at least he's managed to trade him out. But this is looking very bleak, as even though it's been a little bit more of a stalemate kind of scenario, it's very hard to try and see what eSplit's plan is here as they're going forward.
Yeah, something we can see as a bit of a trend, and it's always been Brawl is a tough game mode when we have those lower level teams, at least compared to, the tier 1 and tier 2 teams we've seen in the last couple of weeks competing. It's very often really hard to get out of that stalemate scenario, and it requires a lot for them to find a proper push. And this is why it can get so slow and tedious as we see right now. We do have a bit of a build-up coming in here from M2. Ahmed is not able to retrieve the ball. Meschief will be pushing it backwards. It doesn't really matter ultimately because M2 already have the lead, and that charge shot from Ahmed is going to be closing things out. Max 2 at match point, Lethal.
Yeah, that charge shot, I did know it was going to go in. I just wasn't too sure if he was going to aim it perfect enough to get past that Barney, but he did, so that was perfectly fine. There was already a couple of members taken down, and even then he managed to get it in just before the respawn, which was perfectly fine. But yeah, it's just ridiculous stuff from Max 2. Wasn't as dominating as a performance in comparison to what we've seen in the previous matchups, but that can be Brawl Ball in a nutshell. These things can happen. But you saw there that, they were playing a range game. Their aim looked a lot better compared to what eSplit were doing. eSplit were just trying to push up in any way they can, but one of the players were always there to even to get ready to trade, or to, if there was any engagement in which one of the players of Max 2 lost, which was on a rare occurrence, they made sure just to keep him at bay or try and delay it as much time as possible so they can get their teammate to respawn and then rejoin in the action. So it was good bait and switch. It was just good cover, good trading all round, and that first goal was just, was it 25 seconds in the end? That was definitely a statement there, just to bring the morale down of eSplit, well, even further, shall we say.
Yeah, it was a good start there in that game that really made the difference for Max 2. I think it is also going to be due to the usual engagement when the ball, when the game kicks off. You are at that center area, which means that you have a bit less of a travel to do, a shorter trip towards your enemy goal, and just not enough time for eSplit to get started with that defense. A nice pinch there as Zara takes down Armin. He is looking to pass to his teammate, but Meschief is able to catch the ball in time. It is still gonna be, never mind, a bit of a miss shot there. Shot the ball a bit too early. I think he could have walked it in otherwise. Charge shot from Ahmed.
Yeah, I think he was tempted. I couldn't tell if he was just trying to walk it in or actually take it. I think he was trying to play it safe, but it was just way too little too late, because by then, obviously, not that it was 2v1, but it was just too much DPS on the goal line in order to keep him back, which is a little bit of a shame. But Alno using that Mr. P to see if he can try and keep Syria at bay, but he's doing a great job. A few good shots there, but now they all have to try and pull back, but all clumped up together. They're all been taken down. Surely there's going to be a first goal for Max 2 in this second game of the third set, and yes, it is. And right now, eSplit looking very bleak going forward, and it's not looking too good. But then again, Armin has taken out Syria, Messi's taken out Ahmed. This is absolutely their opportunity now to push up and try and tie things up in this game. Syria is on the goal line, and so is Ahmed, just to make sure they can't push up any forward, and trying to kick that away onto the centre half. But Syria now got it back again, but he's just going to try and wait for his teammate to respawn. I think that's I can remember it was from the top of my head. I think that was Ahmed he's waiting for. But Sarah is already keeping back out, and now things are pretty much reset. But the main thing is eSplit does have that mid control, and it's just a matter of time. Hopefully they can take one of them down. But as I said, Ahmed's already come behind him. Good flank from him. Syria taking out Armin in the process, and Meschief's also been taken down. It looks like this could be a potential second goal here, Teddy.
Yeah, it is a strong push. Once again, a questionable charged shot there from Syria. We saw that earlier as well. Not entirely sure what his goal was here, because there was no way it would go past Armin. He is able to pick up that kill as well. A bit of a stalemate once more, but with 15 seconds left, Esprit or Esprit, they need to find a goal or it is gonna be the end of this first match. It's not meant to be, and Max 2 take the first match home.
Yeah, a little bit better from Esprit, but I kind of felt like the scoreline didn't really establish what we saw there. It felt like a little bit more of a dominating performance. They just couldn't get that second goal, which is a little bit of a shame. But then again, in the first half, you saw that Max 2 did have a lot more trouble in comparison. There's a lot more better engagements from Esprit from what we saw compared to the first game of that third set. But there we have it, though. We do see Max 2 taking that series in definitely say convincing fashion. That first game in the first set was definitely a blip on their part, and it's definitely what we would like to see, especially in the competitive scene. But Esprit, though, did show signs of life, and it should be an interesting elimination match for when they play against later on.
Yeah, this was definitely very good from Max 2. I think that past that first game, it was much more convincing and, you know, overall much better gameplay. Once again, interestingly enough, we have more damage on the side of Esprit, but a very big kill difference. So I'm not entirely sure how that came to happen. Usually that just means that Max 2 is able to close out those skills, whereas sometimes they will tank some damage and fall back or whatever not. Their Rosa pick from game 1 probably tanked quite a bit of damage as well, which could have influenced those stats. But indeed, Max 2 moving on to the upper bracket finals, whereas Esprit will have an elimination match coming up very shortly.
Yeah, commiserations to Esprit. I kind of feel sorry for him a little bit. That the only game they won was that first game in the first set, and it's kind of like, what's the phrase? Probably giving them false hope, like to start things off in the series. But normally it's a great way to kill pressure and just make sure you feel a lot more comfortable in the matchup. But it just didn't seem to matter. You know, it's rare occurrences you see a team just completely turn on you like that, and it's happened. You know, we're very surprised on how well Max 2 as a team as a whole played out with their coordination and how they executed a lot of their attacks. It was just very well thought out, very well played. And I think one of the main points for Max 2, I like the fact that they're not scared to try and push the initiative, like, you know, to take initiative and rely on their players to, even if they're on the back foot, to push up with them. You know, some very good baiting switching, which I saw on a number of occasions. And it's just, you know, overall just good teamwork from every one of those players. I didn't really feel like either one of them was a weak link. It's just very equal damage. And in terms of like what they wanted to do, they had the right idea at the right time, and it's actually very good to see. So seeing them in a winners match later on will definitely be an interesting factor of what could be to come.
Yeah, I'm excited to see those next couple of matches still coming up. They will definitely have quite an impact, as some teams will be battling things out on that elimination match, and then the upper bracket also gives the opportunity to go straight on to the international playoffs, the international finals. So a lot on the line for those teams. Today is a bit of a day for those underdog teams to creep their way through into the finals. We will see who between Treaty Gaming and Max 2 goes straight up to the international finals, the final stage of this Gamestars season, but also which team between Platoon and Esprit is going home empty-handed.
That's right. And if you guys don't know too much about the competition, there is 8 groups and there is a decider match in every single group. So basically, first place team will qualify, no problem. They'll go straight to international finals, and the second and third place teams will actually play against each other in a decider match, which will be happening later on in the week on Thursday and Friday. But this is Group G. We still got Group H tomorrow as well. And in Group G, currently right now, we're just at the halfway mark, as both of the first series have been played. We'll have the losers match very shortly, and then we'll have the winners match straight afterwards to confirm exactly what's going to happen. But we do have a little video for you to see exactly what some of these players are up to and what their shenanigans are. So let's have a quick peek and see what they're up to.
Привет, меня зовут Азат, мне 22 года, я капитан команды Esprit, мой игровой никнейм Mischief, я из Казахстана, из города Петропавловск. Мой один тиммейт, его зовут Каби, ему тоже 22 года, никнейм Армин, он из Казахстана тоже, из города Нур-Султан. И еще один мой тиммейт, его зовут Алишер, тоже 22 года, он тоже из Нур-Султана, игровой никнейм его Ал. Вот. У меня вообще любимый герой Пока, потому что я его первым апал по кубкам, много на нем играл. Ал, он любит на Рика играть, скорее, это его любимый герой. А Армин, наверное, Джеки. Как раз таки мы в анкете, наверное, таких героев указывали. Просто это, наверное, любимые герои. И часто мы, когда не знаем, что взять, берем Аллу просто Рика, и он тащит за нас катки. Судя по составу команд, которые на этом турнире, конечно, будет тяжело биться с такими топами за первые места, но мы ставим себе цель где-то добраться до топ-8, было бы, наверное, неплохо. Ну вот, как раз у ID хотелось бы с ним встретиться, с командой XO. Конечно, хотелось бы еще сыграть в Zero Zone, тоже так следим по ютубу, где они участвуют. Вот, наверное, с этими командами в основном. Ну, такой прям уж цели нету. С трезвой головой оцениваем ситуации, в принципе, что сейчас достаточно много команд, не так сильно претендуем на где-то высокие места, но, в принципе, в будущем, да, почему бы нет, рассматриваем, в принципе, и такой вариант. Команде, своим тиммейтам хотел бы сказать, будьте уверены в себе, парни, мы много что можем, не расстраивайтесь по пустякам, будьте уверены в своих силах. А если есть такие, кто поддерживает нас, топят за казахстанские команды, всем спасибо. Мы постараемся вас не подвести.
I like that from him. Just the fact that he's just very realistic on his approach to the game. They know, they're not going to get top placements. They know that there's these heavy hitters in some of these teams in terms of to try and play against. But in terms of him being realistic, he's basically just trying to say, we're going to try and assess the situation and just go from there. They would like top 8 if possible, but we'll have to see as we are going to watch him and the rest of the boys from the Kazakhstani team in Esprit to see exactly what they're going to be up to, as you can see from the picks as well. But already Al has taken on Sordelka there, and it's a good start from the other side though for Platoon.
Yeah, the Spike is an interesting pick. Where he can find the most value is if he can get up close and basically sit on top of that safe, pop that gadget that is a massive amount of damage. But yeah, it's a tedious way until there. He's gonna get tagged down to 300 HP, so Delk is able to clear up that kill. So far, so good for Platoon. It's only a very small lead, but I do feel like they have the better comp overall. Unless we see a really big blunder and they let that Spike get onto safe, I don't really see what Esprit is gonna be able to do. And actually, well, they're able to almost close it out already. A couple more shots will do. Sordelka runs out of ammunition, making things a bit awkward. Zatix trying to find the angle, can't quite get there, and Armin takes him out, but only 3% left on that red safe.
Yeah, he had to take that damage. It was either the safe or Al, and Al was like, yeah, I'm going to have to take it myself. I'm going to have to be the shield to make sure that the 3% doesn't get finished off to keep the game going, but it's going to be very, very difficult. Mischief earlier did a great job just tickling the damage on the safe here and there when he was pushing up quite far forward. But, this isn't going to be enough. Esprit, it was like one of the players said earlier on in terms of like what they need to do. They need to, have a fair amount of confidence going into these matches and then assess the situation, which they have done a little bit. They have taken it down by another 27%, but literally just out of range. They were trying to clean up on that last bit, but they overextended way too much. This could be a potential chance for them to push up, but it could be too little too late. I was trying to at least try and recover, as well as put some damage on the save, which he have done, but it still needs at least another 13%, 10%, but it doesn't matter anyway, as Platoon managed to finish the save right at the very end, and good stuff from them. But it could be a confidence thing, I don't know, because Esprit looked good at the start, Mischief with the spike, just making sure that he can take the damage down to put a bit of pressure on Platoon, but Platoon were just like, nah, I'm not having it, I'm just gonna, just do an almost team wipe and then push up on the save, which did a huge chunk of damage from there.
Yeah, it definitely felt like Platoon was dominating through this game. I do have to say they maybe got a bit impatient towards the end. Once it was down to 3%, they just kept pushing one by one and losing literally every single opportunity they had to retrieve some control by just going for those duels and diving onto that save. And in the end, it made things quite close. Like it was a 15% left on their own save. If they, choked one more time, it would actually have been Esprit to take that game away from them. So an interesting one. I do feel like experience-wise, Platoon should have the upper hand. Esprit, I honestly feel like we haven't seen anything very convincing on their end in their previous match. So I'm assuming Platoon should have a good matchup ahead of them. But the bull pick here is definitely an interesting one. I mean, it's not going to do too bad against a Barley, just because it's going to take forever to take him down. But definitely an off-meta pick that has to be some sort of a confidence pick because it's not strong right now.
Yeah, the ball's an interesting one to say the least, but we'll see what they can do here. Tixmancer takes out Meschief there as he was struggling around, and Armin now trying to back away. He's already on low HP. He's only down to 280. One more hit will do it, but with the range of the Barley, he should be okay as long as he keeps his distance and try not to overextend. Tix and start it, so Steady trying to at least try and catch out that Barley of Armin, but it doesn't happen. Armin finally manages to take it down, but a huge amount of damage onto Esprit's safe in the end, and now only down to 5%. So now Esprit have to try and get full map control and also keep at least all three of them at bay and not let them push straight through, but it doesn't matter anyway, just too little too late. You were absolutely right with Platoon in terms of experience. It definitely was something of an advantage for them, and that was much more of a win of convincing fashion in compared to that last game.
Yeah, I don't want to be talking badly about teams because obviously, everyone has their own experience, and experience is something you can only acquire with time, and you got to start somewhere, right? But it does feel like Esprit is the lesser team in this bracket, in this group. As their first match, they did pick up a game. It was a nice game, but it did feel more like Max 2 were just doing really big mistakes rather than them, playing much better. So I don't know, man. It's definitely a tough matchup for them as well. I think that Platoon should be able to keep this dominant start towards those next couple of game modes. This first set at least was very convincing on their end, much more dominating, able to go for some off-meta picks as well and make them work. So props to them for that. We'll see if that can keep working in our next couple of game modes, but it's looking pretty bright for Platoon today.
Yeah, Esprit, even though they had 17,000 more damage, I think that's more due to the fact that they were on the defense a lot more. And whilst Platoon were going for the save, of course, Esprit were trying to take out their opponents and trying to stop them from doing it, which is probably why they had a lot more damage in comparison. But we'll be going to Jumping Beans in the next set for Brawl Ball, and then we'll have Siege on Bot Drop, and then, as you see the rest there, Dueling, Beetles, and Crystal Arcade if it does go to a fifth and final set. I don't think you've had 5 sets yet, but Teddy, mate, would you one? But I don't think it's going to happen in this series. It all depends on what Esprit can do in terms of actually trying to make a comeback in the series. I'm hoping that wasn't that heist wasn't one of their best modes, but it's a shame. Again, it's just reading your opponent, downloading your opponent. It's just. It seems to struggle with adaptation once again, where normally second time round you can rectify your mistakes, but it just feels like, after the first game, the second, third game just slowly gets even worse. But we do see the ball again come up. But yeah, as you can see, Platoon, a nice way to score that first goal, just trying to make a statement. And that was so early on as well. But we'll see if Platoon can end it early here.
Yeah, I mean, if Esprit don't win this one, I don't really see how they can make anything out of this series, because they are hard countering literally every single brawler from Platoon. And Platoon is playing Bull that is completely off meta right now. Like, look at his B and M's both super good tank counters, super strong against Poco double tank. You should be winning that matchup 10 times out of 10. Like, maybe once in a while you lose because of some really good outplays or something, but here they were just melting them down, and with a bull as well, which you just never see picked. I think he probably had 0% pick rate before today. I mean, it's a bit of a stomp. It's a bit of a stomp. You know, this was everything going their way. They had the hard counter comp on their side of things. They should have dominated through that one, and instead Platoon made it look easy. So I don't want to rule out any hope for Esprit, but it's not looking very bright ahead of them, as Platoon are the ones definitely dominating throughout this match so far. I want to say we need some sort of a response from Esprit, but I just don't think they're ready for it just yet.
I don't think they are. You know, they've got pretty far so far. They're not out yet. You know, this is going to be one of their last opportunities. Like, that game just wasn't even funny. Like, it wasn't even close in the slightest. And yeah, you are right about the ball pick. Like, you know, I'm not really too sure what they're trying to do, like, you know, what their comprehension is for it, you know, what's the reason. Like, I don't know if it's for the ball rush to try and keep them at bay if they get too close, or, you know, obviously because it's quite can be a little bit tanky too, but it's weird, we'll have to see. But I think you're right that, you know, as you can see, they've actually switched the ball out for Ems now instead, which is perfectly understandable. But, you know, we'll have to see what we can do going forward, if it's going to be as convincing, or if Esprit can actually make something happen, which they have done so far. They have taken out two of the players already, trying to push up as quick as possible, but again, didn't really do too much with the objective straight away, just trying to push the ball onto their side. But they need at least one more cleanup, one wave cleanup before they can execute anything going on. But again, Esprit just keeping their distance, and now it's going to be a fight for that middle part of the map.
Yeah, we have some pretty fancy stuff there with the Carl. We saw Esprit playing him in Siege in the previous match. Actually, Primo is universally known as the worst brawler in the game right now, by the way. So yeah, I don't think they're, like, you know, I just think they're very confident with this one. There is going to be a nice pool, a chance actually to score as well. That is going to be the goal from Esprit. I think that Platoon may be getting a bit too confident with those picks. Like the previous match wasn't supposed, the previous game, sorry, wasn't supposed to work. This one is not exactly working either. Actually, well, this is gonna be a goal, man. Like, as a very strong fan of competitive Brawl Stars, this is a bit painful to watch.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's a shame though, because we don't want to say that, you know, they've managed to make their way here and try and make something happen, but it's like I said, it's an experience thing, you know. Sometimes you have to, like, you know, get crushed or lose quite heavily to then realise exactly what needs to be done. But yeah, you could say Platoon could be trolling just a little bit in terms of the Primo, which is completely understandable, because even though he's quite tanky, it's not really enough to make anything happen. But, you know, saying that anyway, actually there was a Sprit that's actually managed to win that one nicely, but I'm sure they'll be going back to their normal picks afterwards anyways. But yeah, a little bit strange, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough, and I think it's personally, I feel like it would have been nicer if they just played meta brawlers on the side of Platoon, because I know they're aware of what is meta and what is not. They're just trying to troll around and have some fun, which is understandable as well. But if you look at Esprit, for example, they're a team that is hoping to get you know, one of their first steps into competitive, and facing something like that, like, sure, it's going to give them a bit more of a chance, but at the same time, it's not very representative of what they can expect from competitive. So I don't know, I'm a bit, like, mitigated when it comes down to having an opinion on this one. At least Platoon are showing us some of those brawlers you don't really expect to see at the moment. They are winning some scenarios that shouldn't be really winnable, but we have yet to see them really challenge. This is a game going to Esprit, definitely better for them, I guess. But yeah, now we have the full-on meta comp coming through from Platoon. Poco double tank from Esprit. That is gonna be a fair chance for them to make something happen as well, especially if Master Chief can get a super and open up that map furthermore. That could be quite nice against the Poco. Armin pushing up is able to find the ticks, but Steady is able to close out that goal and Platoon taking the lead.
Yeah, with the Sandy, the Max, and the Barley as well, it's going to make their life a little bit of a misery in terms of these picks. And yeah, I think they just want to end it now. It's like they've had a little bit of fun, they've had a little bit of a giggle here and there, but now let's just try and move on and try and win this series and get into the decider match, which we're all going to do now. And it looks like they'll be perfectly fine. They've already pushed through. Static's already gone. So, so it kind of shows an indicator that he's obviously rushing off because he had to panic and do something. But it's a shame though, really. But, you know, commiseration to Esprit, you know, it's a big knock, you know, to their confidence. But it's a confidence thing. You know, they said it in the interview where, you know, they're going to try and assess each situation. But when there's that much of a skill gap between two teams, it's not really too much to assess. You just got to grind and then try and go through the VOD which you had previously and find out exactly what went wrong.
Yeah, it just feels like right now, Platoon is just better at every aspect of the game. You know what I mean? Like, they have better mechanics, they have better strategies, they have better teamwork. I mean, a triple pull from Armin, they're kind of wild, and actually to give that game to Esprit. But overall, there's just not really anything where Esprit is close to matching the level of play from Platoon. So it's really hard to say, like, you know, if they worked a bit more on this or on that, they could make it work, or they just don't have the ability just yet because of that lack of experience in competitive to just outplay them or have any sort of a clutch. Because if you are the underdog team, it's still possible for you to clutch up, but you need those moments of greatness, of individual performance or amazing teamwork or a strategy that your opponents weren't expecting. And in this case, they just don't have what it takes just yet to make it happen.
Yeah, it's looking very bleak indeed for the side of Esprit, but you know, this is their last and possibly potentially you could say their final set, and now they've got to make something happen here. As you can see there, both teams do have one bolt apiece. Tix is going to be able to get that second one for Platoon if he can, but then he believes that there's going to be a tie in no siege will be happening. So there's still 2 sieges left. Esprit's making much more of a bigger impact in comparison to what we saw in that last game, but then as we were saying that, Sadie took out one of the players and we've got Tix who took out Al as well.
Yeah, they're getting bullied a bit, to be honest. Like, so far they're not really able to get anywhere close to the center. Meschief will pick up an extra bolt, but it is going to be only 2 secure, whereas Platoon has 10 already. Sordelka going for that super, trying to negate any more control in the center of the map. They will be able to get a nice trade over. Armin is low HP as well. Platoon obviously getting this big siege bot going their way. Even bolts wise, they will be all tied up. Actually, it's going to be 3 on each side, which, you know, since they will keep control and find some nice damage with this siege bot, it's looking really solid on their end.
Certainly does indeed, as Platoon's now just trying to do everything they can, and they've got to be careful with the respawn immunity. They're just focusing on that attack, and it doesn't matter anyway. Only took 1 siege bot, but it was definitely a large one there, Teddy, and already they've taken that first game in the 3rd set. So again, not a surprise, Platoon just looking absolutely solid right now.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup for them, to be honest. Like, their opponents are just a lot better right now, and you know, the current state of their team and their lack of experience. It's just not really a feasible match for them, unfortunately. That doesn't mean that it's the end of their journey in competitive. I hope they grind their way up, they get so much practice down, get to scrimming more, whatever not, because that's what, you know, it's going to take if they want to be playing at the level of the other teams we have in Gamestars. But they have quite a way to go until there. It's amazing for them that they managed to qualify all the way until here. But today they just weren't able to perform just yet. It is going to be match point now in favor of Platoon. Their chance to close things out was a clean 3-0. Armin is still alive for now. He does manage to survive for the time being, this could be a siege bot. Actually, never mind. It is going to be a draw, which could be better for Esprit because they have some slightly better control right now, but they're taking a lot of damage and they're not able to get Sordelka out of position. So this should mean that now control is going pretty heavily in favor of Platoon.
Yeah, it's like, you know, they were doing okay, you know, they were keeping it as a stalemate at the start, but now, you know, after a little bit of time when things stabilise, you can see Platoon now just going to slowly start running away with it, as they do have 8 bolts to their name, and it's going to be a little bit difficult for them to catch up to try and go for the second siege spot if they want to, considering Esprit do have 5. But then again, they could catch up here, but it's still 4 bolts behind, and, you know, with 10 seconds left, it's not looking likely, especially with Platoon having that mid control, so we could see a 12 or 13 siege spot here, maybe even 14 if they manage to keep collecting them whilst they try and keep the side of Esprit back, which they do manage to be able to, with level 14 siege spot coming their way. Staddy is already taken down Armin. You can see from behind, Meschief trying to go in for the flank, but it's going to be a little bit too late. He's already so weak, but definitely keeping tabs on him. As you can see, he's been finished off, and 2 players have already been taken down by Esprit again. I think it's only going to take this 1 siege spot here, Teddy. Yes, it is. And again, convincing fashion from Platoon. Great stuff from them, and it's going to be a 3-0 series as they'll be going into the decider match, which will be taking place later on in the week. And sadly for Esprit, they will be going home, but home.
Yeah, well, you know, sometimes you just gotta step back for a bit, look at your VODs, look at how you could have improved and what you can improve rather. What went wrong and all that kind of stuff. I think that is what Esprit need to do right now because they have quite a bit of footage to look at today, and it is just so important to VOD review yourself to find out where was a mistake and why it was a mistake, compare it to some footage from the other teams that are competing, whether it's here in the monthly finals or whatever not, so you can just, you know, see what the pros are doing that you're not and why it's impactful. Yeah, it really just felt like Platoon were better at all the aspects of the game. So, you know, in this match, they had better comps, despite the troll comps. I mean that, like, you know, when they were playing seriously, they were picking better comps, and Esprit that was playing seriously throughout the entire thing, their comps were definitely not exactly on point. And besides that, the teamwork, the synergy, the communication was better on the side of Platoon, but also mechanically, they were just able to consistently win every single fight. So yeah, pretty one-sided for this elimination match. It does make things quite interesting for the dynamics of the group stage, because I feel like Esprit was playing better in their previous match. So maybe Platoon is looking as our second best team in the group potentially, or third best team in the group. We'll find that out shortly anyways, as we will have our winners match after this one, sending a team straight to the international finals, as well as on Friday the decider match of this group. So more interesting things to come today and for the rest of the week as well.
That's right, we've got so much going on this week, it's hard to even keep track, as we've got Group G today, Group H tomorrow, and then, like you said, the decider matches on the final 2 days to determine exactly who will be going into the next round. So, like we said earlier, commiseration to Esprit, they did their best. They obviously, we know they were the third placing team from Kazakhstan. They tried to do everything they could, but now that they've been dominated quite hard by 2 teams, it makes you question Max 2 now. To the point where, you know, how good are they? Are they that dominant, or was it the fact that they're sadly, you know, against a team a little bit in a lower tier in comparison? It's going to be definitely a talking point, but we'll see when 3T play against them in their next and final match. And you see there's a huge difference in damage counter, 76,000 more damage, almost a 2 KD there, 62 kills. That's absolutely phenomenal. And there's some funny bits with the best heroes. You've seen a ball actually pop up there, and obviously you got like the Barley, the Crow, the Spike, and of course the Poco as well.
Yeah, it kind of looked like Platoon just wanted to mess with our stats for the brawlers a bit, you know, get like some weird brawlers in the most picked and all that kind of stuff. I mean, one thing as well that I just want to say, because I've seen some other teams do it. I think it was in Gamestars as well, actually, that I think it was SK Gaming that they was it Gamestars? I'm not sure, but I saw SK Gaming once go for the one same comp in every single game of their day, no matter the game mode, no matter the map, they would go with the same one comp. And the reason was that they were very confident against their opponents, and they just didn't want to really reveal any of their proper comps to anyone else VOD reviewing, to keep it a bit secret because the monthly finals were coming up. So that could be a bit the case here. I do have to say that since we are not limited to the competitive map pool here, that it's not really as efficient because there are just way more maps, and there's the chances that you play the same maps twice in a row are very low. So it definitely just felt like some more trolling on the side of Platoon. Now our next match coming up, though, is going to be 3T Gaming versus Max2. This is the winner match of the day. One of those two teams is going straight to the international finals. The other team will be going through the decider match of this group. I kind of missed the Bell. The bands. I think we had Bell. Was it a Gene from 3T Gaming?
Yeah, Bell and Gene. Yeah.
All right. It's the same bands as in match number 1 today, I believe. Both teams going for some similar stuff as well. Gene, once again, quite interesting. It's a decent brawler right now. I would not put him in like the top 5 probably, except for combining him with a Max, for example, which I would rather ban Max than. But it seems like those teams think differently. Dry Season, Double Swoosh, Bot Drop, Fast Fork, and Dueling Beetles are going to be our maps for this matchups. This means that we have every single game mode but Heist, and we will be kicking things off with Dry Season and Bounty, a very open map. We had some Dry Season action earlier, and something that really stood out to me is, despite being a very open map, the couple of walls here and there are actually quite impactful.
Certainly has done indeed. I'm just questioning on Max2's ability now, because obviously they were convincing for a good reason. The only problem we're going to see now is how good are they now they're playing against or coming up against a very strong team, the Turkish team in 3T. I think they did qualify and place number 1 in the Turkish region. Yes, they did. So naturally, of course, they're very good. They've had a bit of experience in the past, and I think I remember you saying that they've had a little bit of experience in competition anyway. So this is going to be a testament of what Max2 can do now, because we've seen what they can do before. It was quite convincing compared to when they were playing against Esprit. But what can we do against 3T? A team which seems to be quite comfortable in a competitive scene, but it really does depend on the scenario from both these teams. But it's going to be an interesting one. I want to see if 3T do get some tough competition here, or if Max2 will struggle compared to their last series.
Yeah, it's something that I always really like to see when a team has a very dominant performance. I want to see them in the next match once they face a team at their level, or at least a team that will challenge them more, because some teams are very good at winning but not quite as good at losing. And when they start getting challenged a bit more, and they maybe start off on the back end with their opponents taking the early lead, they can get snowballed because they don't really know how to react to a team challenging them so much. They don't really know what to change when things aren't working. And that's something that they haven't had to do so far in Gamestars. In their first match, whatever they would do would work. So they didn't really need to switch anything off. They could kind of run with whatever, which could give them some false impressions as well of, okay, we're so good, this was the right comp to pick. Maybe it wasn't the right comp to pick. It worked. That doesn't mean it was the perfect way to play that map. I think that you learn more from losing. And when you have a very dominant performance early on, it also means that you kind of get comfortable and you kind of don't really doubt what you brought on the table. And I think that could bite them back here in our 4th and final match of the day. But obviously, I'm hoping they prove me wrong.
Yeah, I hope so as well. It's an indicator from that first couple of sets, but that's something which I do really find annoying as well. I'm sure others do find it annoying too, where you do explain something like a scenario in a situation in a match where you should be doing this, you should be doing that, you shouldn't be doing this particular thing because it's a mistake. But because they actually got away with it and it worked, they'll be like, oh, so yeah, it wasn't a mistake. No, it still is a mistake. You just got really lucky and got away with it. It's all about eliminating, the percentage chance that you could get mucked over in somehow, some way. I've seen it a few times. It is annoying. It is one of those things you've got to try and contemplate sometimes. But you are right, though. In terms of the comps, hopefully Max 2 will realise that, if certain comps do or don't work, then they'll be able to rectify it quick enough. I think they are a kind of team who can be quick to adapt, but against a team like 3T, this could be a different situation entirely. Both these teams we don't know a huge amount about in terms of the experience in the competitive scene, but 3T do look quite promising. Max 2 is still quite questionable. Yes, sure, fair enough, it was convincing earlier on, but it was against a team like Esprit where we knew absolutely zero about until we went into this. But again, commiserations for Esprit actually getting knocked out earlier on, but they did try, like I said before. Saw a lack of experience, but we'll have to see what Max 2 can do, because I don't if I said to you, what would you predict in this match, you wouldn't be able to, because it's going to be very, very tough, as we haven't really had enough ingredients to kind of discover exactly what we think is going to happen throughout this entire series.
Yeah, I think this is going to be interesting because both teams had some pretty dominant performances early on. Now finally meeting another team that had, likewise those more dominant performances in that first match. It is going to be Blue Star on the side of Max 2, and 3T are the ones that need to find a kill now. There's still plenty of time on the clock, plenty of opportunities will be coming up. I think this too is something we saw them pull off earlier already. It is going to be an almost mirror matchup. I think that the Sprout, in my opinion, would give a slight advantage to M2, but obviously we'll see how the Mr. P is going to work out for 3T.
Yeah, Barrister definitely keeping his distance. We know what Bounty can be like sometimes, but look at that. Ahmed pushing straight in. That was very aggressive, but it doesn't really matter too much because he literally just got traded out in the end. And I'm assuming making the assumption he would have done. Maybe he thought he wouldn't be able to get back in time because of the amount of range these brawlers do have. So I think he didn't really overextend. He just wanted to go for at least a trade to at least, stabilize and then go back forward on the respawn. But so far, it is a tie from both of these teams. Neither team really making an edge or making a dent in the armor. The only thing you can say right now is 3T does have slightly more map control, holding that centre half. But now Ahmed is on that left side. Look at him. You can tell he's tempted to go for that overextension once more. He was hoping to push a little bit, but he actually had the advantage there. But I don't think he thought he was going to be able to pick him apart that much. And he does actually manage to clean him up just barely in range. And now Ahmed is just trying to get back. He's going to try and re-heal if he can. And Max 2 are actually ahead 5-3, but then you've got 15 seconds left as 3T now to try and push in and make something happen. As Barris is now only on 1500 HP. He's been taken down by Syria, and now things have always been trying to tie it up, but it looks like it's not going to happen. As Max 2 are way in the lead, up 13-6 there, Teddy.
Yeah, M2 is a really solid first game to kick things off for this winner match here. Kind of reminder, the international playoffs are on the line, so it is definitely a big step up from the group stage. Also prize pools wise, just giving them tons of more opportunities, so they will be giving it their all, as Max 2 just picked up that first win. Definitely a solid game on their end. I think it's really tough to analyze Bounty in general, because once a team gets that early lead just by picking up the Blue Star, for example, it means their opponents need to go for some risky plays if they want to have a chance at tying things up and making something happen, or taking the lead rather. So it does mean that right now we sure, had a pretty big lead in stars towards the end, but it doesn't always reflect all that much, because they were the ones that had to push up, that had to take risks, and that got punished for it. So they're the ones that overextend, as they're looking for some peaks, as they're looking for some kills. Good stuff from Max 2 though, not taking any credit away from their win, but I feel like if in the next game 3T is able to get the Blue Star, it could be a very different scenario heading their way.
I feel like Max 2, mechanically, they're looking really solid. I wouldn't say in comparison to 3T. 3T are also looking pretty good. But when you've got players like Ahmed, where, he's literally sniffing out for flanks, even on such an open, it's on such an open map. And he's got away with it a couple of times. Obviously, the first time round, he got a trade, but that's because he already knew he overextended. He had to continue pushing in. And the second time round, I think he was a little bit surprised himself. Like when he was against one of the other Stews on the opposite team, he was actually out damaging him, and I don't think he realised. I think he realised afterwards. He was like, "Oh, hold on a sec. I'm actually on an extra 2k HP. I can easily clean this up." So I think there was a slight confidence issue there, but now I think he's actually gained a lot more confidence and a lot less pressure going through. It's like speaking of Ahmed, has actually been taken down straight off the bat here, and you can see already that 3T are just keeping their distance.
Yeah, the 1-star lead right now in favor of 3T. We will see if they're able to capitalize on that one. Oh, Artiskin is going to get walled off. Takes a little while to react to that, but is able to make it out alive anyways. M2 are going to be the ones that need some sort of a reaction to that initial push from 3T. I like that come from 3T, to be honest. I think that Poco and Max together are very underestimated. When you combine them with a tank like Jackie, you just have that ability to get into your opponent's face really, really fast. Nice trades though from M2. They're able to take the lead once more. But yeah, my point was just that it's really nice if you play together, because you can get very quickly in your opponent's face and have a ton of healing to back you up as well. The problem is when they're playing so separated like this, they are going to get picked up one by one. Nice kill over there. The trade is there. It's looking much better now for 3T as they do take that 2-star lead.
Oh, Leica just managed to get away from the skin of his teeth. He wasn't in the best of spots, but his reactions in terms of like knowing exactly the scenario he was in, he was just trying to get back as fast as possible no matter the situation. But this is going to force Max 2 now to try and push in and try and make something happen, as they need to force the engagement, as all three members of 3T are trapped in the corner, and already Zara is actually the one who's done it on that skin in the end to tie things up. But still, the aggression is going to continue, and in fairness, even though it actually tied up in the end, it will be on the side of 3T who take that win in game number 2.
Good stuff there from 3T. They're able to get back into this first set, giving a bit of a challenge to Max 2. And once again, it's really what I was saying earlier, that very early lead can make a very big difference. However, once again, Max did manage to, take some good dominance at some points in that game, and 3T, this time, they were able to successfully pick up some kills here and there, despite once in a while maybe spreading up a bit more than I would have liked. When you have a Poco, you get the most value out of getting, being very grouped up. And
no,
that is not what we were supposed to be watching. I know exactly what happened. As someone that streams tournaments myself, sometimes just for fun, I can tell you that it says that you can spectate the player, but he's actually just in the training cave, which I'm not entirely sure why he would be. It seems like an odd moment to be in the training cave, but yeah. Pretty much not our next game ready just yet. Yeah, I can't really analyze too much out of that one, you know what I'm saying? Maybe just practicing his cold skills against non-moving targets. Not entirely sure if that scenario is going to be coming in this next game. Maybe it is, who knows?
There was me calling you an analytical mastermind. Deary me. But yeah, it's all right, guys. Don't worry. We will have game number 3 in the first set very shortly. And it's nice to see that it's going to be a very close series potentially between these two teams, because we've seen 3-1, a few 3-0s here and there. But I think now this is where it's crunch time. This is to qualify straight away into the international finals. This is absolutely huge. And you've got to remember, for some of these teams, if they do lose this and whoever goes into the decider matches and then qualifies for the international finals, that's going to be more VOD research for anyone who's actually already in the international finals to either watch this live or just watch this back in general with the team. It's going to make a huge difference, and people don't really understand But, you know, the amount of research and prep you do, you know, the more chance you're going to have to increase your chance of winning. You know, it's just, you know, there is some teams out there who will actually watch back any mistakes they made in theatre or, you know, any kind of VOD research rather than actually playing. It's like with quite a few players. But again, you know, this is going to be important for them. It gives them more time to prep for the finals as well, depending on whatever tournaments they have to do in place of that. But we'll have to see, though. So I feel like, you know, from what you've seen so far, and kind of an indication, Teddy, it's only been a couple of games, but you saw, you know, Max 2 seems to be the kind of team who do actually find these opportunities to try and push on through. But 3T seems to have a more of a passive approach. But I think for a game mode like Bounty, it's quite hard to comprehend exactly which team should be, you know, be a good indicator of like what could happen throughout the series.
Yeah, I wouldn't take too much out of Bounty, to be completely honest, because it is one of those game modes where the early lead is so important, especially when you have teams like this that do struggle a bit more to catch up and push and get some structured build-ups to get close to your opponents, pinch them in a corner, pick up a kill and take back the lead. This is something you just don't see at this level of play, right? They're a bit like lower than some of the teams we watched in the last couple of weeks. So they struggle a lot once they are on the back foot. I feel like so far Max 2 did play a bit better. I think they did get outcomped a bit in the previous game, which, you know, doesn't take any skill away. It's just a different skill when you look at the strategy aspect and the comp aspect of the game rather than the mechanics and the teamwork and such. We will see this time we have a Crow onto Ahmed. Definitely an interesting pick on that one. The anti-heal could be quite valuable facing that Boko double tank comp from 3T.
Yeah, because Ahmed, I think, was riding the, I think it was, no, not the Rico, sorry, it's the Stu earlier on in those first two games. So maybe a little change could make a bit of difference. We'll have to see as Ahmed does get his first kill to his name, and it's now 3-2 in favour of 3T still. But now 3T did have that mid control. They've actually given up quite easily because of the range going from Max 2, just making sure keeping them at bay, especially with Mr. P being on that right side, just keeping them at bay. I think that was Zara riding that at the moment. And Zara does manage to take down Barris in the end. And you saw that our Darkskin tried to get away from Syria, but Syria just managed to catch him. Ahmed was only on 188 HP as he was pulling back. So now 3T a little bit behind. They're just trying to regroup and now talk about exactly what needs to be done as their next move. And look at the amount of range. Oh, you see that our Darkskin already pushed straight in, like it got there a little bit too late, but managed to push him free. But Max 2, all three members have grouped up to hopefully try and take one of them down. Just a matter of who wants to push first. Is Barris is trying to push him first. Like is trying to push him to try and clean anything up. Ahmed gets the first kill. Like managed to trade off, managed to get two of them in the end, tied things up, and actually still gets a third there, Teddy. And now they're pulling all the way back, and that was so successful for them.
Yeah, this is some pretty good stuff from 3T. 20 seconds left. We have some nice shots going down. Can they pick something up here? M2, they are in the back foot. They are behind by 4 stars. Barris picking up another kill. Will get traded out. Barris is solo HP. If they can take them out, yeah, that is going to be the lead for M2, and they steal this game, and therefore this set away from 3T.
As if that happened. That was ridiculous. One ending to the first set, and you know, we've been waiting for a series like this all evening, Teddy, and finally we might potentially get it. But Max 2, good stuff from them right at the very end. We did talk about it earlier, but you know, Bounty isn't really like a clear example of what we can expect, but at least, you know, there's something cooking here. You know, at least we may see like a 4 or 5 game set, sorry, a 4 or 5 set series going through. But you know, Max 2, they didn't really panic too much. They knew that if they suffocate them enough and do enough damage with their range and then push on forward after, you know, eventually things will happen, things will occur. They will be able to try and catch up. But my goodness, Teddy, that was way too close to call, literally to the dying moments of that last game. But great stuff from Max 2 to come back from that 6-star deficit.
Yeah, Max 2 was a big clutch this game. I do want to point out that I think their comp was maybe a bit weak. I like the Crow. I don't know if that was... basically, my line of thought is that the Crow would be in case they go for that Poco double tank again, just to get them less healing because of his passive. That just means that, you know, people heal less when they're getting poisoned by him. The thing is, the rest of the comp was extremely vulnerable to tanks, which I feel like they could have gotten one brawler that just deals a bit better with those tanks and actually just have a bit more of a breeze in this final match, just in case they would go for that Poker double tank again, which they literally just, you know, kept from one game to the other. So maybe a bit of a miscomp there from Max 2, but it is going to be all fine as they are able to take that win anyways. Double Swoosh is up next. Lethal, Double Swoosh is my favorite gem grab map. I am devastated that it's not in the competitive map pool anymore, and I am so happy to watch some Double Swoosh today.
So it gives you more reason to ladders, doesn't it? So at least that way you may have even though a very small chance of playing it, but nonetheless you may get that opportunity. But you know, this is why we're here. You know, this is why, you know, thanks to Gamestars, you will get your favorite map on Gem Grab, which ain't a problem. But I just want to look back at the stats. Obviously, you know, we've already seen the stats. I've memorized them anyway. Just even though the kill difference in the gems, sorry, not the gems, the stars was actually only a small difference. Did you see the damage? 142,060. That was like 2.5 times more the damage in the impact. It just shows that Max 2, they again have the presence, but just couldn't really make anything of it. And it's a very scary thought that if the damage stats were correct, which, you know, I'm assuming they are, then I'm worried about these next game modes, because you know, there should be a clear indicator that Max 2 should at least have a more of a dominating approach going into this series. But we are going to start off in set number 2. If you're just joining us, this is the final series of the evening. This is the winners match to determine who's going to go straight to the international finals, and the loser will be going into the decider match playing on Thursday or Friday. So Datskin's got that first kill on the board. Lycan managed to get one on Sirius straight afterwards, and Barris managed to get one on Armored. So it's going to be a complete team wipe there, as already 3T has got 4 gems and soon to be 5 on the board.
Yeah, good control so far. Spike used to be really meta on this map. I don't think it's quite as strong today, but Max 2 are struggling to deal with him. And Max 2, they're pretty much struggling to deal with anything. The Sprout really dominant so far, able to pick up 8 gems already. 2 more will get that countdown started.
Certainly will indeed. Only need 1 more to their name, so they can at least push on back, or maybe just keep up the aggression depending on the numbers of Max 2. But this is looking very good from 3T now, as it feels like Max 2 could just be a little bit too far away, keeping their distance but also trying to keep them at bay. You can tell that Max 2 are panicking only slightly. They are coordinating still heavily, but it's going to be way too little too late, as Datskin and co will be taking game number 1 in set 2. Very convincing, probably the most convincing game we've seen so far in this series, and great stuff from them. That's definitely going to be a morale booster on the side of 3T.
Yeah, I think they just had a very strong outcomp in that game. The Sprout, extremely dominant in the middle area, just able to help out wherever he wanted to, and block off some crucial areas as well. That's what you need of a Sprout, and why he can be so good on those kinds of maps, because the value is amazing. I think something in Brawl Stars to take into account is that sometimes, because of, you know, cover and natural, like, you know, the environment, you're not really able to do much, and you're left out with like full ammo, and you can't help out any of the lanes because, you know, most brawlers you can't shoot above walls, and then you're not able to find any value during that time. Sure, in this case you could still be capturing gems, but if you can't help your teammates win their lanes, if they lose their sides, you can't stay in the middle as comfortable anymore. And this is why Sprout was just such a big asset. Another couple brawlers that can do something like this would be Byron, for example. With Byron, even if you don't have any line of sight on your opponents, you can just heal your teammates and you still get that value. You're not sitting on full ammo, not doing anything. And that's just the kind of things that teams have to keep into account when they go for those comps. Now we have M2 was a bit of a better start than in the previous game. Ahmed is able to stay alive for the time being. He's going to get tagged down very low HP. And we have some very interesting decisions comp-wise from M2. I think the 8-bit worked out terribly for them in the previous game. They're going for it again, actually. A nice beam. The jump in from Zara, but he's not able to do all that much. He picks up a kill, but gets traded out, and that means that Ardaxkin is able to survive with the gems.
Yeah, there's a bit of flair from Max 2 at the start, but now it's a completely different scenario. They have got mid control, but look at this though. Frita doing so good, just keeping them at bay, doing good damage, keeping out of range. Barris managed to take down Zara there, and we'll have to see if they can hold up any longer. But that 8-bit from Syria needs to pull back at some point, taking too much damage. Oh, Barris actually still stayed alive and just barely missed out on some of the shot saves, left on 200 HP. Zara's getting a little bit desperate, just trying to push in and make something happen. That's going to be a big mistake from him. His Lycan now also took out Zara. Laxkin also took out Syria. And only one member left. It's Ahmed. He needs to try and stay alive if he can, as 3T is now coming back with the gems. They do have 12 seconds to work with, but now the coordination's getting off. They're all getting picked off one by one here, Teddy, as now it's going to be too little too late, as 3T wins game 2, set 2 in very convincing fashion, and now tie the series 1 apiece.
Yeah, good stuff from 3T. They are waking up, and honestly, I'm a bit confused from Max 2's end of things. Like, the Sprout was clearly a very big difference maker in game 1, and they just had nothing to address it in this second game. They didn't decide to match the Sprout fight in the middle. They didn't decide to go for a counter. They just played pretty much the same, some very slight adjustments, but nothing really substantial. And it was pretty clear that they wouldn't be able to win this one because they had just no reaction whatsoever to game 1. It was as if game 1 didn't happen, and they were just there like, we don't know what our opponents are going to be picking whatsoever, and we'll see how it goes down. It wasn't the case though. Game 1, we saw that Sprout, they decided not to answer to that threat, and they got absolutely demolished because of it. RT3T, able to pick up a nice set here and get started on that scoreboard. It is 1-1, all tied up, and we will be moving on to set 3.
That is crazy to think about, considering how much Max 2, in terms of damage count, just absolutely destroyed him in that first set. I wouldn't say destroyed, sorry, that's probably the wrong word for it, but, you know, kept him at bay and stabilised. But then I would have thought that with the damage, he would have done a lot more considering the objective. But yeah, very, very strange. And now it's just complete opposite end of the spectrum now. So we are going to go straight into it. Siege, no mucking around between these two teams. The Max Poco and Barley on the side of Max 2, and the Crow, Barley, and 8-bit for the side of 3T. And you can see now there will be a level 2 siege bot coming in favour of 3T. There's 3T now just going to try and push alongside it, just using that bot as shield, trying to take Max 2 down if they can. So Ahmed's already taken a lot of damage. Syria's going to take a bit more though, as Ahmed just manages to stay alive, but for how long for? As he's going to maybe try and pull back a little bit. It's not really helping the siege bot yet. I think he's just hoping that the other two players of 3T don't do anything in terms of like at least trying to do extra damage with that siege bot. But look at that though, Teddy, already 50% gone.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage. A nice double kill from Ardaxkin. He's able to pick 2 of those players off. The trade was there in the end, but the ball was already captured by M2. This is going to be another siege bot for 3T. Not a lot of bolts have leaked to the ranks of M2, so things are looking pretty bright for 3T. We might have a bit of a comeback story in this match, Lethal. Sure, M2, they started off better in Bounty, but 3T looking much more dominant. That's already game 1 in the bag.
Maybe, you know, I know you said that in the last set that was your favourite map, but maybe Max 2 is probably the absolute worst map. What a this series is really weird, like really weird. It just seems to rely on like the game modes and what they're comfortable with, and we can't really tell what their strengths and weaknesses are, because I'll probably say in the last set, Max 2 were, you know, sometimes they were coordinated okay, but there was the odd time where they would overextend just a tiny bit, or try and take someone out in a 1v1, 1v2, and they just make the assumption that, you know, one of their opponents is on their own, and they can then grasp that there's a possibility of making an execution and pushing for the kill. But this time around, it's just completely different. It's very, very strange. I'm not complaining though, because it makes things a lot more interesting, but it's weird how Max 2 just absolutely flopped in that last set, and we're probably making the assumption that, I don't know, it could be the fact that 3T could actually win the entire series now, because Bounty can be quite hit and miss. It can be a bit of a coin flip, but yeah, you know, Max 2 looking very good, very strange, but again, not complaining. I love a good series.
Yeah, I feel like 3T, they're running away with a lot of momentum, and I think that this is something very normal, very to be expected in those matches with some lower tier teams, is that momentum is so important because it is teams that have a bit less experience, which also means they're less used to dealing with those long matches, with those tedious matches, and with switches of momentum. So it's a bit easier to roll on your opponents, even if the skill is a bit closer. It really comes down to that momentum, and right now it is 3T that has all of it on their side.
Yeah, I always used to say that with some of the low tier teams, if you've got a team of happy faces, that's already an advantage in your favour. As already now 3T are just trying to keep them back now if they can. And it's going to be a little bit of a struggle though, but Ahmed's almost been taken down. He's just trying to stay in range of the bot, so at least can do a little bit of damage there, as you can see. And he's healed up just a bit, but I don't think it's going to be enough, as Audaxian just managed to take him down there. Barris is still quite far away, but he was hoping that he was doing extra damage with the Barley, but as you can see with the range, he won't be able to push him forward. But Ahmed, very aggressive player, like always trying to predict exactly what is going on, full of confidence and flair in terms of what he wants to try and do. And look at him try and go for Barris. He's trying to pinpoint him if he'll try and flank him if he can. But that was a few mistakes there, probably a little bit too aggressive. Barris finally takes him down. Audaxian takes down Syria in the end, and also takes down Zara. So that's pretty much a team wipe there. It is 3 apiece in terms of bolts, but hopefully you can see that 3T does get that 4th one. Max 2 just got their 4th bolt, just a little bit too late after the siege bolt, but it may help them for the next siege bolt afterwards.
Yeah, 3 bolt lead for Max 2. They've had a really good defense in the previous siege bot. This one will get only 2% damage. That's 2% of 2 defenses. That's definitely very solid from Max 2. If they get that final siege bot, they pretty much secure the win. But 3T, they are still contesting. They still have some more control. They're able to get the man advantage as well. The jump in from Artiskin, it is going to be so low HP. Goes down, team wipe, and 3T out of nowhere are able to take down Max 2. This is going to be the 3rd siege bot going the way of 3T, and pretty much securing the win as well for 3T.
Yeah, that's ridiculous stuff. It's taken them quite a few attempts and quite a few siege bots, but finally they will get there in the end, as it will inflict a lot more damage than it did previously in the past. But you're right though, Max 2, it's worrying for 3T going into this 3rd and final game of this set number 3, because, you know, those first 2 siege bots, their defense was very good, and, you know, 3T are going to pick up on that. And they're lucky that, you know, Max 2 did have those 5 bolts compared to the 0, because they've already used the 2 siege bots in the first place and still managed to keep up a good defense.
Yeah, it was looking much better from 3T. I feel like set 1 was like fairly, like, it was actually very close in set 1. They won off a tie, I think, in the end, Max 2 to secure that set. But from there on, 3T just looked better and better after every single game. And this is pretty much the best we've seen them so far. 3T up 2-1 in sets now. Good set with a nice 2-0 sweep going their way, and Max 2 with their backs against the wall. They need to be careful.
They certainly do indeed. I'm interested to see in this next game not only the strategies they'll put in place, but what comp changes they make. If there is any comp changes, of course, that's going to be the next question. You saw there that with 3T Gaming, they looked really, really solid there. You can see that 43,000 more damage in comparison, a lot more kills, and it's just funny how it's just going back and forth between these teams. But 3T, though, looking good.
Yeah, they certainly are. A lot more kills, a lot more control overall. Fast Fork is going to be our 4th set. That is obviously some Brawl action. Yeah, it has been pretty good from 3T. A bit of a Uno reverse card after that first set, as they do manage to pick up the lead in sets now, and this is going to be their their opportunity to close out this match in 4 sets. Ahmed really aggressive, getting punished for it, will be going down, but actually that's gonna result in a trade. Syria, he could have scored there, but he probably had some sort of a lag, or his mom came into his room because he stopped moving in front of the goal. He could have tanked through that damage, by the way, he just didn't. So that might be a bit of a missed opportunity. This should still be a goal if they decide to go for it, but Syria, nope, is gonna shoot the ball instead of tanking it in. It could be a bot playing, I'm not entirely sure if he disconnected or something, because he's doing some pretty interesting and questionable moves right now.
Yeah, you were right about the AFK thing earlier. I did notice it for about 5 seconds when he was quite close to his opponents not doing anything, and Zara has taken down another player on the side of 3T. So Ahmed, again, very, very aggressive plays, pushing in nicely. Zara, good teamwork from him, good coordination, and Ahmed still pushing. That was a little bit too aggressive there, but I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference now. Syria won't be able to pull back. He's way too far in. And this is what I mean by coordination. Sometimes they push him one at a time, they get a little bit... They're like a kid at Christmas, Teddy. Sometimes a couple of them get a little bit too excited.
Yeah, it does seem like Syria must have some sort of connectivity issues, because every time you look at this, like, I don't know what he's doing standing in the corner. This is going to be a goal from 3T, 50 seconds away from match point, unless we have some sort of an answer from Max 2. Oh, we have some fancy spins coming through from Syria. That is working fine, but the rest, maybe not so much, and this could be the follow-up goal there coming true already from 3T.
It could be. I'm not really too sure what it is. It looks like a very high ping or something like that. I'm not 200, no, obviously I'm not 100%, but you know, he's trying to do his best anyway. He's trying to make the situation happen. The series has already, the set has already gone too deep into the game, so I think they're just literally going to play on. While Daxkin just going to keep the ball for himself. He's just going to play time. He's going to waste time as much as possible if he can, which he has done. So I think it's, you know, nowhere near enough to be able to do anything. He's going to push it to their side. He won't get a goal. Oh, he will get a goal. Okay, never mind. I didn't think he was actually close enough to be able to make it that far, but managed to get away with it anyway. A good start there from 3T. A little bit sad for the side of Max 2, but I'm hoping that they do manage to settle their differences and be able to sort out the problem on, I think it was Zara using the Frank, was it? Actually, at the time, was having a few issues, but I'm hoping those issues
Syria,
get rectified. Oh, sorry, who was it?
I think he was called Syria, like the country.
Oh, it was Syria, sorry, yeah. Some reason I thought it was Zara, I don't know why. For some reason I thought he was actually using that brawler. But yeah, anyways, we're hoping to see that Syria can sort out his potential, maybe his ping issues, or maybe he got disconnected like Teddy said. We'll have to see, but because they were looking really good at the start, I'm not going to lie, they actually looked like they put in a pretty dominant performance in the first 30 seconds, but yeah, what a shame though, because he was right near that goal line. He might have actually been able to take the damage and put it in, but it's just one of those things.
Yeah, he would have. I think he had 2 moments where he could have just tanked it in, but yeah, just lags or whatever not happening to him said, nope, not today. And this is gonna be 3T at match point now. 1 game away from going to the international playoffs. Max 2 are in danger. It is not end of the journey if they lose here. They would still have you know, the decider match in the lower bracket to have a chance to still qualify, but it would be a very rough way. They're a very tough way to get through this group. So the easy way is definitely just to win this match. I'm saying the easy way, but they are behind and it is match point for their opponents, so they need a lot to go much better in this next game, in the next couple of games, because 3T, they might as well run away with this one.
Do you know what I was going to say as well? It's the fact that, you know, even if they do have to go to decider matches, more matches to play, more experience to go through, because it's not like it's a 2-day double elimination bracket where they're playing game after game and eventually your stamina can run out if you have an early, you know, start into the loser bracket if you get dropped down. But yeah, I can understand that, you know, they want to try and come first no matter what here. They want to try and win, they want to try, and he's push on forward. It will give them a good seeding, I feel like, as well, going into the groups in the international finals, because when we are at the international finals, there is 4 groups which will which have top 2 qualify and then go into a elimination bracket. So of course, getting first place here will not only help them to qualify straight away and then they can put their feet up and have a brew, it's the fact that they can get a very good seed leading into the international finals.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. The seeding will be quite important, especially when you see groups like yesterday, where if you get second seeded out of this and you're facing the first seed of like yesterday's group, for example, oh man, you are in for a treat. So yeah, the seeding, as you say, is really important. I hadn't even really considered it yet. I was really thinking about, you know, the team surviving to the next stage.
I'm thinking about the
but
next
seeding,
decade, mate. So
yeah, man, you're 2 steps ahead, man. You're 2 steps ahead. So yeah, it is something to take into account for sure. You see some of the other groups are a bit uneven as well, where you have one team really dominating and taking that first seed. So getting first seed is really important in this group, because to be honest, the winner of this group, in my opinion, would be the like lowest level winner of a group so far into Gamestars. But it would mean that they would be facing a second seed team, which could give them a bit of a chance to go further than they would expect into the finals. So we will find that out soon enough, because it's already match point for Treaty.
that's right, indeed. Of course, none of these teams want to play against EXO, AC Milan, SK, anything like that. So this is a very important match for both these teams. As you can see there, Ahmed managed to get the ball, and now he's just waiting for his opportunity to try and keep it back. He's going to pass it over to Zara. He's going to try and kick into the corner, which is completely understandable. And Syria is just was trying to push in there, but obviously due to the spikes, he's going to take way too much damage. Now Datskin managed to keep him at bay, but I think he's going to tank it. Yes, he will, and will be able to score just like that. So Leica, very good start from here to manage to score that. A lot of patience there from 3T, and this is Max 2's last chance in this series. They cannot let this happen, or even lose another game, because they will be not taken out, but they will have to play in the decider match, as Ahmed has taken out Leica. It's a good start for them leading up to this final minute.
Super from Artiskin is not able to pick up any kills with it, but Barris and Syria trade each other out, which will leave a bit of an opening for 3T's defense to get back up. They are 1 minute away from qualifying for the international finals, and they're picking up some nice kills here. Ilker might be able to close it out. He will do just that, and 3T take down M2, secure their spot in the international finals, and M2 will have to settle with a decider match as a last resort, a last chance to qualify as well.
I wonder if they still had a ping issue, or maybe their mindset and their mentality just went straight out the window, because I don't think they were too happy, and you can tell in their gameplay sometimes, again, the aggression was just a little bit too much in terms of the overextension. And normally you kind of see that when, I don't know, it's just something one of the players get a little bit annoyed or a little bit frustrated, which is completely understandable. When you're in the final series and, you know, this win, it can be so important to avoid all those tier 1 teams and each of those groups. These things can happen, but sadly for Max 2, they do lose in the series 3-1, but we also got to remember that they're not completely out yet. They will be playing in the decider match on the Thursday and Friday of this week to not only confirm their place, but to continue in the next round and see what they can do from there. But as you can see, there's some highlights from what happened in this series, and it was a good series to start off with. It's just a shame there's a few connectivity issues, and in the end, 3T managed to walk away with it. But then again, 3T did look very solid in sets 2 and 3.
Yeah, we had some decent stuff from M2 throughout the day, so I do still think we have quite an exciting decider match for this group ahead of us. This is going to be played in 2 days or 3 days, something along those lines. I'm not so sure. I'm not that good with dates, but it is going to be soon at the end of all the groups. I think it is 3 days, because we still got 2 more groups to go through, I think.
Possibly,
Rectify
yeah.
me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, we can confirm
Yeah, we'll
that.
have
I'm
that
not going
confirmed
to.
in a bit.
Yeah, I'm not gonna confirm
I
it,
was
but I'll
pretty
confirm
sure
on
about
Friday.
myself, and then just once I started opening my mouth, I was there like, I don't want to say anything wrong, so I won't. But
You just
yeah,
had second thoughts.
yeah, exactly. I just started doubting, you know, at the moment where I was like sure enough that I could go for it. You love to see it. You love to see it. 3T was a very convincing performance across the board today. Some solid wins, whether it was their first match, actually the first match of the day it was, and the last match of the day as well. 3-1 is definitely a respectable score on their end. Obviously, M2, I mean, we had some nice stuff in Bounty. Once again, I did feel like Bounty wasn't maybe the most appropriate way to measure their skill and see how they would phase down, because the rest was a lot more one-sided. But M2 not out of the competition just yet. As we just said, they will have a decider match in a couple of days after we are done with the rest of the group stage.
Yeah, that will be against Platoon, so that will be pretty much a rematch for the decider, which should be a great match. But I can say what, 3T are going to be literally so relieved. They're definitely going to be, wiping the sweat off their forehead, knowing but the chance of them, matching the very best in the tier 1 teams, avoiding the likes of AC Milan, SK, EXO, there's so many different teams there which you definitely do want to avoid. Even if it's like a bottom tier 1 team, tier 2 team, it's better than getting absolutely stomped to start with, so it gives you more of a better opportunity to stay in that top 2 for the single elimination in the international finals. But looking overall, 75 to 42 kills, that is a huge KD margin, and you can see from the damage is there to around 130,000. And some odd picks here and there. We know that you said earlier that in one of the games that Spike is not as meta as he used to be in one of those sets, but we do see the Barley, the Crow, the Poco, and the Tick there. So, apart from that, a little bit off meta, but a little bit standard at the same time, depending on the modes. And these are the standings for Group G. So the first series of the day, we saw 3T Gaming take down Platoon 3-1. Max 2 surprised us with a great start to their day, winning against Esprit 3-0. And then in the elimination, we had to say goodbye to Esprit because of the fact that Platoon managed to beat them 3-0 and moved on to the decider match, will be played at a later date, with 3T Gaming winning that winners series 3-1. But that's all we've got time for, Teddy. That is it. That is another day all done and dusted. Any final thoughts before we head off and do our final group stage tomorrow?
Well, we have still so much action to get through at Gamestars. The best is yet to come. We still have some more days of the group stage, but after that it's gonna be the international playoffs, and oh my, the talent is gonna be up there, and we will have some amazing matches ahead of us. Lethal, any final words on your end?
It's been a great day nonetheless. It's interesting to see some of the low-tier teams just trying to make an effort to, push on to international finals. There is still an opportunity there for Max 2 and Platoon, so we can also see what they do, going forward in the future rounds. And then if I was going to say, it was a good watch. That final series, a little bit anticlimactic, which is a little bit of a shame, but it just shows that with a bit more experience and a bit more time underneath their belt, they could see some, solid teams pushing forward, maybe higher up in the future in a certain amount of months and years, depending on their circumstances. But no, that's it from me. That's it from Teddy. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to, of course, Supercell and the production. But not only that, thank you to you guys, the viewers at home. We'll be back same time tomorrow, so we'll see you then.